Make sure to check out Jake's podcast. Just search for Blackstone Intel Report on your favorite podcast provider. Jake doesn't just entertain, he teaches. Blackstone Intel reports are often so densely packed with information that it can be hard to take it all in. If you'd like copies of Jake's Blackstone reports, become a paid subscriber of $5 or more at Substack or Patreon. The way you can support Jake's work is to become a Blackstone Intel channel member on YouTube. Click on the Blackstone profile picture and look for the button that says Join. You'll see different pricing options as low as $3.99 per month. This will give you access to perks, including loyalty badges and custom emojis that only members can use during live streams. Jake's live streams include segments designed for paid channel members to show off their status and use their exclusive emojis. So sign up today to become a Blackstone Intel channel member.
In a world of smokescreens, psychological warfare, and carnival barking liars in press suits, the truth is harder to find than a congressman with a conscience. It's all a bunch of damn lies. But here at Blackstone Intelligence, Jake don't chase the narrative. This crazy sumbitch dismantles it. Y'all, my boy grinds official stories up into fine powder and snorts that sweet schnitzel to fuel his fire. Are you starving for facts the global elites don't want you to hear? You got the munchies for intel you won't hear from all them war pig politicians. Well, sit back, spark up your brainstem, and prepare to inhale the intoxicating fumes of unfiltered truth. Let's get Blackstone.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Good to see you all out there tonight. It is Wednesday, party night. How's everybody doing? Good to see you guys. Looking at everybody in the chat, all these beautiful faces. Flick Off, Ernie Truth in there helping out as moderators. Oh, Tariq, man, we got everybody out here tonight. Matt McGregor, hello. Marvin Vargas, Make America Free of AIPAC, amen. Hello, hello. Hey, and we've got Cicero. Holy smokes, I'm actually seeing your live stream and not late. Cicero is a channel member. So if you guys want to become channel members somewhere around or here, you can find the link to that. You get some special stuff. All right, so listen, we are going to be doing a lot tonight. I was going to go live last night, but I knew that this stream was going to be a couple hours long, at least. And my oldest son's wife went into labor, had a beautiful baby girl. So I figured, not the best time to live stream. But here I am. I am the proud father of 10 strapping children, the grandfather now of 4 children. So you know what that means. Grandpa Jake is having to dole out the cash throughout the year to an ever-growing number of children and grandchildren. And don't get me started talking about Christmas. Grandpa Blackstone. Well, listen. We are going to, and then tonight, just a little while ago, I was going to start about 8, but then one of my sons visiting from Utah, he's drove across country. He's on it. He finished a year or so ago, finished a degree in economics out west, and he's getting ready to go to William and Mary to law school out in Virginia. So he's on his way over, and he stopped by tonight. So anyway, got a little bit of a later start. So tonight's show is going to be about 2 hours long, minimum. You know how long-winded I get. I'm sure I'll get off on a tangent or two here or there. The main story tonight is going to be about Trump's attempt to create a distraction from the Epstein scandal by essentially deputizing the Washington, D.C. police and sending the National Guard out to restore order to a city that is allegedly ripping itself to shreds with unbridled crime, violence, rape, murder. It's going to be a big deal to get a handle on it. It's like Escape from New York. Who was it? Was it Kurt Russell in Escape from New York? Saved the day and then came back with Escape from LA. Anyway, I'm going to be running through the theatrics of that going on. And I'll share with you the actual crime statistics. We're going to talk about the ongoing Epstein fallout, psychological operations, including maybe a minute I'll talk about QAnon. I'm going to name some names, hopefully trigger some snowflakes. But wait, there's more. I'm going to be giving away 2 prizes tonight. One is going to be for the winner of a community game of Hangstein. Instead of Hangman, we're going to play Hang Epstein, Hangstein. The winner of that contest is going to get this air freshener didn't hang itself. And as I've told others, it's not actually an air freshener. You can hang it like a regular air freshener, but it's plastic. So unless you put your own essential oil on it or something, you're not going to smell it. Just lube it up with a little bit of Jeff Epstein massage oil and you are set to go. Look at that out there. Ernie Truth already slinging the donations. Congrats, Grandpa Blackstone. Throw this in a Christmas card. Thank you. I could definitely use it. I appreciate you, Ernie. And Flick Off also made a donation here. Congrats, Jake. Did you get a chance to look at the Ben Gurion Canal? I did not prepare for that. No, dang it. But you know what? Let me hit my screenshot here on my screen. So I'm going to have that after the show. I did look at it a little bit, but not enough to prepare like a presentation. Flick Off. I can't believe it. Hey, Cicero just made a donation. $20. Holy free holy. You guys, I do have this goal that I set up Uh, I've got this goal here to get 15 super chats of $5 or more within 2 hours. Now, hopefully, if we hit that goal early, then that'll trigger me doing the Hangstein game early. Otherwise, it'll be about an hour in before I do the Hangman game. But if we hit that goal early, if I don't notice it, let me know in chat, but we'll do the game. And actually, what would that... We're kind of partway there anyway. Hey, Tariq says, enjoy grandfatherhood and free Palestine. Amen to that. Free Palestine. I'll be doing another report or two on Palestine over this next week with additional information. Anyway, so our first game is going to be prize where you win this. Second, at the end of the night, at the end of the stream, we're going to do a drawing. Anyone who has made a donation of $5 or more, $5 or more during this live stream, your name will be added to the spin wheel here, and we will do a drawing. And at the end, you will win either a Blackstone ball cap or your choice of either the ball cap or a combination of an Epstein air freshener along with a free 1-month subscription to my Blackstone report on Substack, which is normally $5 a month. In fact, let me show you real quick here. Let me switch around my screen and get this link here. I'll put into the chat window. I think that this link will work. You can check it out, but in case it doesn't, let's take a look here. There we are. So this is my latest report, Operation Midnight Climax and the CIA's quest for mind control. In the shadowy heart of the Cold War, the CIA's Operation Midnight Climax turned hidden San Francisco brothels into LSD-laced surveillance traps, where unsuspecting men were drugged and studied through two-way mirrors. What began as a quest for mind control became a voyeuristic experiment in power, blurring the line between espionage and sadistic entertainment. So this report here talks about Operation Midnight Climax, which was, I guess, cute at the time for the people that came up with the name and are doing it. Pretty interesting. I got a lot of stuff there on that. But anyway, that's the kind of stuff that you get if you are a paid subscriber on Substack. Now, you don't have to be a paid member to be a follower on Substack. So I would encourage everybody to go to Substack. You can follow that link there and check it out. Even subscribed as a free subscriber, you'll get notifications from me, an occasional post here or there. But anyway, so that's that. So we'll do that at the end of the stream. To win it, you have to be in the stream. Hey, Joe Who says, Israel is the 51st state. Satan Yahoo owns Trump. Thank you for the donation, Joe. All right. Now, I may actually end up, I'm trying tonight, because in the past when we've done Hangman, there's been kind of I had the, apparently the setting was on to have the slow chat. So I've turned that off, and I've changed the latency on the stream to where the picture quality may be a little bit lower, but I'm hoping that it will be synced up. Last time we did Hangman, we had all kinds of delays in the stream. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started here, and you guys just party on, dudes, out there in the chat, and we'll go through this and then do the Hangstein after that. I'm going to tell you one thing before I get started. You know, one of the things that I do on the side, since I know that I can't rely completely on Blackstone on YouTube, because, you know, my channel gets taken down from time to time, strikes and different things, but so I need something that's non-controversial, and that's why for the last year I've also been building kind of a movie review thing for old monster movies, old 1950s sci-fi and horror flicks, the old Universal monster movies, stuff like that. And so I've done a lot of writing of scripts and things. I've got a Facebook page with over 140,000 followers, and a group to go along with it with about 20 something thousand group members. The Instagram to that has got coming up on 24,000 followers on that. So I've been building this stuff on the side, and I do movie reviews, and I do a lot of stuff that is totally kosher with the censors at YouTube and the various social media channels, just in case. You know, I'm trying to build something on the side. Frankenstein, or properly pronounced Frankenstein, is a great character. I like the mad scientist Frankenstein as much as I do the monster. But anyway, working on a backstory last night, this was like 3 or 4 in the morning. I was working on a backstory for one of my characters, Jake Blackstone, actually Professor Jacob von Blackstone. I was like, what are his origins? And I'm going back, and I thought, I wonder, I was like, I would love, based on this story, this particular character, he's got a twin brother named Victor, who's my alter ego. And then where do they come from? And I thought, well, I've got ancestors that were from Switzerland. I wonder if I could have like a grandfather from Switzerland who was kidnapped in the 30s by the Nazi SS and kind of conscripted into their esoteric occult division, and forced to do experiments or whatever. And so I got looking into my genealogy, because I've done tons of family history. I was like, I think I've got some family there. I got looking at it, and I found in Grindelwald, Switzerland, from the 1300s, 1400s, my family line, this is like my 17th, 18th great-grandfather, way back, were the von Schreckensteins. No, von Schreckenstein is how you pronounce it. Schreckenstein. First of all, no, they weren't Jewish. That's the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, could they have been Jewish? No, they weren't. Stein in German basically just means stone or rock. Shrek, which Schrecken. Schrecken means terror. So, stone of terror. So I was like, oh, wait, this works out great, that I had Ludwig von Schreckenstein from, this terror. Also, it can mean like terror castle. He ends up in Germany, ends up fleeing with the help of MI6, finds out, the OSS tries to recruit him. He's giving some secrets to them about the Germans. Turns out that the OSS is as awful as the as the Nazi SS. So he goes into hiding, changes the family name from von Schreckenstein to Blackstone. And that's how I end up with the name Jake Blackstone, or Jacob Blackstone, Jacob von Blackstone. Anyway, I just was so excited last night to find out that I have got someone in my ancestry with the name Terror Stone. stone of terror. Dread rock, dreadstone is another way. Anyway, doesn't have anything to do with anything, but let's talk about Donald J. Trump. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. A lot. So much so that his fixer, Attorney General Pam Bondi, deployed over 1,000 agents to scour 100,000 plus pages of material to locate and redact any references they came across to Donald Trump. And Bondi is a hardcore Trump loyalist. Trump hired her to work with his other lawyers on his impeachment defense. Remember, the Democrats kept going after him. It was, they were relentless. And honestly, I think he's going to be impeached a third time. This is kind of off on a tangent here, but I anticipate that the Republicans are going to get absolutely decimated in the midterm elections. It's already real close in the House. I expect the Democrats will take control in these midterms, and they're going to go after Trump again. And man, there's a lot of material there. One thing we can be assured of, though, is they're not going to go after him for anything that he's actually done wrong. They're going to come up with some ridiculous, Russiagate type mess again and probably screw it up like they did last time. But anyway, so here you got Trump. He's hired these different people. You got Pam Bondi. She's on the team with Trump's other attorneys, which included Alan Dershowitz and Ken Starr, both of whom had been Jeff Epstein's lawyers to get him that sweetheart deal. Now, given that Pam Bondi's allies were lawyers who worked for Epstein, you can't really say that Pam Bondi is any kind of unbiased party in all of this Epstein stuff going on, right? So when Trump found out from her about the extent to which his name had to be hidden or redacted, they decide, the best course of action is never let these files see the light of day. Because even if there's nothing in the files that are, explicit, that say Donald Trump did this to this kid or whatever, don't even have to have that. Just the sheer volume of his connections to Epstein, the references to him over a period of years, that itself is going to be really bad for him politically. I mean, and that's the best thing. That's the best thing that you can say. So with the announcement by Bondi and Trump toadies Kash Patel and Dan Bongino that the Epstein documents don't implicate a single other person in the entire world except for Epstein himself, Trump supporters were justifiably angry, right? Takes a lot to get a Trump supporter angry at Trump world, but this did it. And he tried to insult them and guilt trip them into shutting up. He said that they were weak, said he didn't need their support, trying to persuade them to drop their interest in this Epstein story, but to no avail. So while he's busy trying to gaslight the country about how the Epstein document trove, 100,000 pages of material, trying to gaslight the country into believing that it was actually just a bunch of stuff written by Obama and Hillary and Biden, that they personally wrote this stuff and it's all a Democrat hoax. While Trump's out there saying that, you've got over here a House committee, bipartisan. I mean, it's Republican majority because they control the House, but you got Republicans and Democrats joining forces to try and get to the bottom of the matter. And so this joint committee voted unanimously to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell to testify about the Epstein trafficking network in front of the U.S. Congress. Now, having passed this committee, this is how you do it in the U.S. Congress. You do work by committee. You chop it up, look at a bill, do it in committee. If it passes committee, then it goes out for a full vote on the House floor. And so that is what was getting ready to happen. The House of Representatives was going to vote on the subpoena, and it was expected that the vote was going to be overwhelmingly in favor of dragging Maxwell in front of Congress and grilling her about everything that she knows. Now, Trump could not afford to let this happen, so he has Speaker of the House Mike Johnson go in and impede these bipartisan efforts to summon Maxwell. And the way he accomplished this was by shutting down the House for the rest of the summer, shutting it down early before it was scheduled to shut down, so that they couldn't cram in this last-minute vote to subpoena Maxwell. Now, as a quick reminder, remember who we're talking about. Ghislaine Maxwell is the daughter of Mossad super spy Robert Maxwell, who Trump is photographed visiting with in the 1980s aboard Maxwell's yacht that the Mossad later murdered Robert Maxwell on. Most likely injected them and dumped his body over the rail. Now, Ghislaine was Jeff Epstein's lover. She was his co-child trafficker. She and Trump were photographed together at parties dozens of times over the years. They were good friends. There's no debate whatsoever about that. Epstein introduced Trump to Melania at one of Maxwell's parties in New York City. So when Ghislaine is suddenly arrested during Trump's first term, it spooked him, made him fear, because she knows a lot of stuff. Doesn't know how much she knows, maybe, but he knows she's got to know something that could be damaging. And so she was afraid, well, maybe she's going to threaten to do something, leak something for leniency, if this goes into the next minute. So that's why Trump was out there telling reporters very timidly that he sincerely wished Maxwell well. Not once, but he did it multiple times. Despite the fact that the woman's a rapist, a child sex trafficker, and that everybody, even Trump's own people, can't stand Ghislaine Maxwell. So you've now got the House shut down. They can't follow through with the subpoena. Trump then dispatches his personal lawyer, Todd Blanche, to go see Maxwell. Todd Blanche is the Trump loyalist who Trump appointed to be Pam Bondi's deputy. So Blanche is the deputy AG. So he sends his former personal lawyer, now deputy AG, sends him to meet privately with Ghislaine Maxwell. They give her limited immunity, saying, go ahead and talk. What you tell us here, the information we glean from you can't be used against you. They took the unusual step of letting her leave the prison to be interviewed somewhere else. That's not normally how you do it. And certainly don't send a deputy AG to do something like this. But, they send her back to the prison after the interview's over. She's, photographed carrying a box of goodies, a box of supplies, goes back. And then they go and just a week or two later, they take this child sex trafficker out of her prison and send her into this cushy minimum security detention center in another state. So we're watching another sweetheart situation, sweetheart favor, right? And it's got a lot of the women, the female inmates at her former prison are pissed, and they're starting to talk about what they know about Maxwell. And I was watching the news this morning. I forget the woman's name, one of the inmates, and I don't take these criminals' words. Could certainly be lying. But she says that Maxwell was at least telling people in the jail that she had dirt on Trump and that she had offered it to the Biden administration in exchange for clemency. And the Biden people basically said, we're not going to do a deal with a child sex trafficker. Now, is that true? I don't know. If Biden was personally involved, he would have been in there sniffing her hair and doing his pervy Biden stuff, because, that's what he does. Clearly, the hey, Scott Harris is breaking out his bong, getting ready to get Blackstoned. That's right. Yeah, man. Clearly, the U.S. State Department of Justice, which is supposed to remain politically neutral, so that they can ensure a fair application of justice for America, right? You're not supposed to be, this is a Republican Department of Justice. The justice system in America is now a Republican justice system, or it's a Democrat justice system. It's supposed to remain neutral politically. regardless of which party is in power. But, that's not how it works. And certainly it has been radicalized in a big way. So we now have this partisan monstrosity that echoes justice in the same way that you would see the application of justice, say, in a third world banana republic led by some corrupt demagogue, right? That's basically what our U.S. Department of Justice has become. But the fury of public sentiment still has not subsided. Weeks have passed. Trump relies on that 2-week rule that he learned from Roy Cohn. If you can last 2 weeks, if you can just weather the storm of any scandal, give it 2 weeks, it'll be out of the news cycle and you're good. You're safe. Just don't screw up in that 2 weeks. Well, Trump has screwed up repeatedly, but this scandal still hasn't gone away. Everybody knows what happens at this point, right? When a U.S. president is under fire, what does he do? He tries to distract the public by controlling the headlines. You have to have something else. Nixon, back during Watergate, when there was a lot of media attention about the Watergate cover-up and what Nixon's role may have been, one of the things he did was he staged the signing of the Paris Peace Accords as a triumphant end to the Vietnam War. And that dominated headlines. It temporarily dampened media coverage about Watergate, because it's the end of Vietnam. And then next thing he did was he started what was called the Rose Garden strategy. That was where he started having a series of ceremonial presidential looking events, one after another at the White House, receptions, press briefings, staged meetings with foreign leaders, stuff to keep the media busy reporting on all of these things going on, so that is what is filling up the evening news and giving less time to Watergate. So you got to have stuff going on. It's political theater. All U.S. presidents do it. The political theater that I remember the most was it took place back in 1998. And this was, hey, Katie Cat out there in the chat, just days after Bill Clinton had given grand jury testimony during the Lewinsky scandal. He launched something called Operation Infinite Reach. And this was a pointless missile strike against alleged terrorist targets in Sudan and Afghanistan. And it shifted a lot of the news headlines away from the big story of the day, which is that the U.S. president had been hauled in front of a grand jury and had to talk about whether or not he was bonking an intern and stuff like that. And then skip forward just a little bit. On the day that the U.S. House of Representatives began debating the articles of impeachment against him, he launched another operation. This one was called Operation Desert Fox. And it was a huge strike, massive strike on Iraq. It lasted for 4 days. It ended only after the U.S. House had finished their vote against him to impeach. So it was a real-life version of the movie Wag the Dog, which was a movie that had just come out the previous year in 1997, a campy spoof of a fabricated war to distract from a sex scandal involving the U.S. president. That, by the way, at the end of the show, Wag the Dog is the movie review that I'm doing. So here we are, August 2025. Trump is out there crapping his depends. Many of his supporters have fallen back in line, unfortunately, acting like they never had an issue with this Epstein stuff to begin with, because they're spineless, brainwashed cowards. But a lot of Trump's base has shown some backbone, and they continue to demand that the Epstein files be released. So Trump needs a tail to wag the dog. He needs something, and voila. Trump comes out this week and announces that the capital of the United States, Washington, D.C., is experiencing a massive upsurge in violent crime, that it has been taken over by, his words, violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals. And so he has no other choice but to take authority away from the local government, exert federal power top down, deputize the local police into federal forces, and then flood the streets of D.C. with U.S. military, with the National Guard, to take the city back from these monsters, because we're under attack. We are under attack. And he's basically using a loophole around the Posse Comitatus Act's guardrails on military involvement in domestic policing, because normally you cannot use the U.S. military to carry out domestic police work. But this is just the beginning. The President of the United States is telling us, he said it with his own mouth, his own orange makeup stained mouth, that there are several other U.S. cities from Chicago to Los Angeles where he may just do this same thing. Deputize their police force and send in the U.S. military into the streets. Can you believe this? Now, are we distracted from the Epstein files yet? You've got the U.S. president talking about taking over U.S. cities and sending the military in? Is this a distraction? Yeah, for a lot of people it is. A lot of people, especially a lot of Trump supporters, are no longer asking about the Epstein files. They're talking about how, yeah, we got to go get Antifa and whatever else. That's why I'm going to keep talking about it. Someone said in the beginning in the chat, why are you still talking about this? Because I want to see this Epstein stuff stay in the news cycle. I don't want it to disappear. But let me take a couple minutes here to talk about Trump's latest dishonest, despotic, big government scheme. I have always been a small government guy. I used to be proud to call myself a conservative. In fact, back in the 80s, I used to call myself an ultra-conservative because I thought that sounded even more cool. I wanted to emphasize I was a Barry Goldwater type Republican conservative. But I'll tell you, the people that call themselves conservative Republicans today, they were the liberals. The people who today are considered conservatives are just the liberals and the leftist neocons of yesteryear. So I don't call myself conservative. I don't like the label. Hey, Phil got his Epstein air freshener. Hey, Phil, thank you for the donation, my brother. And thank you very much for letting me know you got it. I'm glad you received it. Not only do we have access to the crime rate data from numerous sources, but we have it from the DC Metro Police Department itself. It publishes the crime statistics on its own website for everyone to see. I'll put the link in the chat. You don't have to click on this. I'm just letting you know where I'm getting my material from here, this data. Because Trump is talking about how there's been this big spike in crime and it's just out of control and we got to do something. It's so much so that the only way to deal with what's happening in Washington, D.C. is to send in the U.S. military and deputize the federal police, right? So this has got to be really extreme, but that is not the case. Washington, D.C. is not only not experiencing an upsurge in crime, but violent crime and property crime rates have fallen significantly. Murders have declined dramatically year after year. So what I posted there in the chat, this is to the statistical data provided by the DC Metro Police Department itself. And this isn't something they just recently put up. They've been doing this for a long time. What the statistics show is that violent crime from 2024 to 2025, violent crime has dropped 26%. Homicides have decreased 11%. Robberies have fallen by 28%. Assaults with a dangerous weapon down 20%. Total crime across all categories shrank by 7%. Now, if you go back even before that, looking at the trend, 2024 from 2023 to 2024, 32% reduction in homicides. All violent crime overall dropped by 35%. Now, I don't deny whatsoever that Washington, D.C. still has a high crime rate overall. You know, I grew up in Miami, Florida in the 1980s during the drug war era. This is back when Miami was known throughout the world as the murder capital of the entire world. But in the 1990s, that title of murder capital flipped over to Washington, D.C. because it became so awful there. In the mid 90s, this is after I had come back from Thailand. I spent multiple days every single month for over a year in Washington, D.C. I lived in North Carolina, but I traveled to D.C. because I was doing political work back then. And as much as I enjoyed going around to see the sights, I loved going to the museums and the Capitol building and everything. Even though I enjoyed going around the Washington Mall and seeing everything, I knew the whole time I was one block away from, if I wasn't careful, stepping into some of the most crime-riddled, thug-infested ghettos I had ever seen. Washington, D.C. was a total dump back then. It was okay. It had areas there for the public to visit for tourism, but it was not a safe place. So I don't dispute whatsoever that DC has a problem. But that was 30 years ago, and a lot has changed. While the crime rate in DC is still above the national average, so are a lot of the cities around the country, above the national average. So did Trump supporters really want to see the federal government deputize local police departments around the country and send in U.S. troops with automatic weapons, come in their Humvees, go around, do like they've done out in L.A., stop citizens on the streets? Well, that is the direction that Trump is going. If Trump says he might do something, given the crazy crap that he's done, you ought to take it seriously. But why is he doing it? Is it because he really, truly desires, he really, truly sees a need to go around and save the country from some big upsurge of crime? No. This is a distraction. This is wagging the dog. This is trying to get the news cycle to talk about some other radical thing he's doing so that they stop talking about Epstein. So this stuff is not about keeping Americans safe. It's about keeping Americans distracted, pacified, staring at this circus while the P.T. Barnum of our age hides the bodies buried under the big top. Hey, thanks so much out there, Diligent Escape. Anarchism is true freedom, and the other ideology is slavery. Love you, Jake. Thanks for coming back. Thank you, Diligent Escape, for your donation. You're awesome. I appreciate it. Now, that's what he's doing, but there's a lot more that Trump has been doing since he's come back this second term that is frightening. I mean, look at what he's doing. He's been erecting these sprawling FEMA camp-type detention sites like Alligator Alcatraz, which is just like half an hour from where I used to live in Homestead, Florida, South Miami. Trump's federal takeover of Washington, D.C.'s police, paired with the National Guard deployments and paired with his new push inside the Pentagon to build a permanent what's called a domestic civil disturbance quick reaction force. There's a mouthful. This marks a really sharp turn toward normalizing military response during peacetime governance. This is crazy. It's an extraordinary moment of political inversion as well, because this is not the Democrats doing it. This is a Republican White House advancing precisely the kind of federal militarization that many conservatives have warned for decades that a Democrat administration was going to impose on us. Think about it. If this was Biden or Obama doing this, would Trump supporters, would Republicans in general be like, it's Yeah, how about that? No, they'd be in social media talking about needing to overthrow the government. There was a leaked DC National Guard order that a reporter named Ken Klippenstein uh, published that showed that the National Guardsmen were involuntary mobilized through late September. Okay, so this thing that he's doing, it's not just for August. This mobilization to start with. It could be extended, but it has been ordered through late September, and it's to protect federal property and to support federal and district law enforcement. So this leak from Klippenstein of the order, the call-up order, has really been feeding unease among people who are concerned about civil liberties, people who see that this order is kind of a blueprint for setting up a continued military presence, at least in the capital, but perhaps elsewhere, a presence that is justified by this elastic emergency that by actual statistical metrics doesn't actually exist. Trump has fabricated an excuse to do this. Like, the statistics don't justify it. If Donald Trump is justified in taking over the local police of Washington, D.C., and sending in U.S. troops, boots on the ground, into Washington, D.C., if the level of crime that he's talking about is justification, it's justified in Chicago, in New York, in L.A., it's justified in cities in Texas, all over the country. We need to speak out about this. And the Posse Comitatus Act from 1878, it bars the use of federal troops in civilian law enforcement. But the loophole is that it doesn't bind National Guard units that are under state control. So here's the thing, the DC Guard is a special case. They can be federalized. They can be steered by the White House. So, anyway. Yeah. Matt McGregor said Big Balls got attacked in D.C. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. But I thought, okay, but you go back to the Trump campaign. He was talking about this. He was hinting this. He was hinting about this even when he was running for president. This second time, third time, fifth time, if you want to be technical, considering he's run multiple times before 2016. But anyway, these Pentagon documents that reporters got hold of show that there is a plan for, again, what's called a domestic civil disturbance quick reaction force, which is roughly 600 National Guard troops that are stationed in 2 locations who are able to move nationwide within about an hour, like send them out, strike force. Washington Post reported about this, describing the capability of this reaction force is supposed to be able to be deployed into American cities pretty much wherever, whatever time it takes to travel to the location, which essentially is normalizing military response to things like protests, local unrest. That's what we have local and state law enforcement for. That's not the job of federal forces or federalized forces. Now, this personnel surge is only half the story. Defense One points out that coupling these emergency declarations from the White House with what is essentially Israeli intelligence surveillance systems, a surveillance stack, you've got municipal camera networks, right? You got facial recognition pipelines, mobile device location data, automatic license plate readers, AI-enabled analytics from companies like Palantir. All of this can supercharge government visibility into your private life. Trump's association with Palantir is frightening. Go back and look. One of my early Substack reports a few months ago was on the danger of Palantir. Go check that out. Phil H. says, is Trump at all against the deep state? Is it possible that he's being blackmailed and therefore powerless, or has he simply always been part of them? I'll be talking about that more, Phil. Thank you for the donation, my good friend. I'll address some of that as I go through. And Carol says, Jake, you're an amazing investigative reporter. I don't know if I can ask this. I thought Epstein had videotapes. Someone is holding the cards. Carol, thank you for the donation. And yeah, Epstein had hundreds of hours of video footage. It was snatched early on by the feds. FBI has it somewhere, or at least that's where it started. Unless they've destroyed it, it should still be there. Copies of this stuff have got to be out there. But yeah, there are pictures. There are photographs of drawers full and cabinets full of CDs with video footage from Epstein's surveillance cameras that the FBI took. I've seen the photos. So there's tons of it. Massive, massive amount. But anyway, I was talking about the personnel surge and the way that the increasing use by Trump of using the military for domestic operations, when you couple that with this plan of having a rapid response force, U.S. military rapid response force, coupled with all of this Israeli surveillance tech, we are starting to find ourselves in the very atmosphere, Orwellian atmosphere and Big Brother superstate that we've been talking about for years. Like, it's becoming reality really quick. Because under any claim of, an emergency from the White House, you have the potential for data sharing between federal and local entities to expand. Retention rules can loosen. The line between public safety and political monitoring can blur. So the risk that I'm talking about isn't just troops on the street. It is a vastly more powerful back end that is stitched together in the name of this kind of open-ended crisis that Trump is setting up. H-Bond, thank you so much for that donation. I appreciate you. We'll put you in the drawing, prize drawing for the end of the show. So this is where I want to address my fellow conspiracy theorists out there. And this is where I said I might trigger some people. Let me give a disclaimer up front. If you voted for Donald Trump, I don't fault you. I don't have a problem if you voted for Donald Trump. So when I'm talking about Trumpers, Trump supporters, I'm not talking about you necessarily. I'm talking about the faction of Trump supporters that are so brainwashed that they live, drink, breathe this MAGA stuff. They can't think for themselves. They wait until they get the talking points from the White House, and then they go and they parrot them. They are utterly they cannot think for themselves. They can't reason. Anything that Trump does, they will figure out. They'll wait until the talking points come out, and then they will repeat that. Okay, that's the kind of fanatics I'm talking about. The people that are out there wearing the diapers at Trump rallies, or the people walking around with the fake vials of J.D. Vance sperm. Really retarded people. Those are the people that I'm talking about when I make fun of Trumpers. So to you people, if any of you are watching, what has happened to you? We are at that day of government overreach and tyranny that our community has been talking about for years. It's happening right now before our eyes. And to my utter disgust, most of you people who think that you're some kind of watchman on the walls, you're out there asleep on the job as if you're security guards watching Jeff Epstein's cell. You're not doing your job. You're asleep. It's like you've given up on the idea that MAGA stands for Make America Great Again. It's to you, it's now mindlessly allowing government abuse, missing all the government alarms, making authoritarianism great again, mindless and gullible as always, mutely approving government aggression. Yeah, someone out there mentioned, yeah, these are the kind of people that were out there proudly wearing the tampons on their ears after Trump, did his whole, oh yeah, I got my ears shot off thing. Where are you America firsters? Did the Marmalade Messiah put so many tariffs on your testicles that they fell off? What happened to you? We were part of a community before Trump came along. And you guys kind of went crazy. You're like, hey, here's this lifelong liberal New York City Democrat. I think I'll support him for president. What did you think was going to happen? I know that some of you guys that are on the far right recognize that what's happening before our very eyes is wrong. Because for years you were out there shouting from the rooftops that the Democrats, especially Barack Hussein Obama, was going to be unleashing FEMA camps on us, that he was going to impose martial law, that he was going to turn federal power inward against people who are speaking out against the government, right? We saw what happened after Hurricane Katrina during the George W. Bush administration, right? They went around door to door, disarming people that were just trying to protect their property, legal gun owners, take their guns away. We saw what happened after the Boston Marathon bombing during the Obama years. The FBI going around door to door. Both of those times, there was an outcry from the patriot community in the United States. And it did not matter to them if it was happening when George W. Bush was president or when Barack Obama was president. What mattered was that it was wrong that the federal government was getting involved in police actions against local people, and often in times of crisis. Joel Dalton. Hey, Joel, good to see you, friend. Thoughts on Nick Fuentes? Ask me later. I've got, a balanced thoughts on Nick. PM, thank you for the donation, says, meandering all the while government abuses. Yeah, put your favorite MAGA acronyms out there. Joel, yeah, remind me later on if I don't want to break the flow here and get in on that. In a nutshell, I'll just say Nick Fuentes, too extreme for me on, white supremacy, misogyny, stuff like that, women and all that. Highly intelligent, very sharp guy, young guy, sharp, very skilled oratory, and right about a good many things, wrong about a good many things. But anyway, we can talk about that more later on. I would say, here's my concern about Nick Fuentes. The parts that are good are great. The parts that are bad, yeah, it's really bad if that becomes the dominant belief system among the younger generations in America that can be influenced by that kind of stuff. Women need to learn their place. While I definitely appreciate, I'm white, so I appreciate white culture. I have a lot of pride in what my ancestors did to build this country, and I don't apologize for it. But I'm not so extreme that I've got, some of the concerns that he does. I certainly wouldn't use some of the rhetoric that he does. But when it comes to his positions on Israel, I think that the reason that Nick Fuentes is in the news so much is because he has been a vocal critic of Israel, and he calls out Zionists, including a lot of prominent so-called conservative influencers who are pro-Israel, like Ben Shapiro and people like that. And so when you speak out against Israel, you get stomped. They come after you. And he knows it. He's put up with it. And, good for him sticking to his guns on his criticism of Israel. But anyway, let me get back to talking about the MAGA community, because a lot of these people, I knew a lot of these people before they became Trumpers. Patriot groups, the kind of concerns about what Trump is doing today, this is the stuff that they were talking about back before Trump was president. I know that the militia groups were concerned about this stuff because I was embedded among some of them. I was going around to barbecues. They were having me to events, speaking at different groups, not just here, but across the country. I felt very comfortable among militia groups because we had common concerns about the overreach of the federal government. We'd talk about Waco and stuff like that. Typical stuff you talk about. But I feel like I stayed consistent. And I feel like some of them, not all of them, some of them allowed themselves to be conned by Donald Trump. And I'm just surprised at all of this stuff going on today. Where's the resistance? Where is the rebellion against it? You think the Democrats are going to be the ones getting out in the streets, rising up and raising hell over FEMA camps and stuff? No, it's going to be the Republicans. It's going to be the kind of far-right Republicans. But the Republican Party has collapsed under Trump. He has destroyed the Republican Party as it used to exist when I was a member years ago. The kind of anti-government or anti-federal government rhetoric was a staple of right-wing talk radio for decades. And I know this because I sat in Rush Limbaugh's own studio next to my grandmother as she sat there talking on Rush Limbaugh's microphone to millions of his listeners, talking about the kinds of things that we're talking about now, government overreach. She filled in for me. He'd have her come up there back when he was still in New York City. He'd have her come up there and host his show when he'd go on vacation sometimes, and I'd go with her. I was there with you guys in social media talking in the Obama years about, you remember the trains? We'd see the pictures of the trains pulling beds of just hundreds and hundreds of plastic coffin liners, taking them around to FEMA camps around the country. Remember that? I was like, hey, what is this? This doesn't seem right. What is this all about? Did Obama send out masked federal agents in unmarked vans to snatch American citizens off the streets without even knowing if they're legal citizens or if they're illegal immigrants? No. That's what Trump has been doing. Did Obama put American citizens in FEMA-style camps? He drone struck a couple of them overseas. But no, he didn't do that. Didn't put them in the FEMA camps. But Trump goons, his goon squads, are going around rounding up innocent U.S. citizens. And I'm not talking about grabbing the criminals or the illegal aliens who have committed crimes. I'm talking about innocent American citizens. You don't think this stuff is real? Just ask Carrie Lopez Alvarado. Pregnant woman, U.S. citizen from California. Ask the U.S. Marshal that Trump's goon squads mistook for an illegal alien. They detained him in Arizona. Ask the U.S. military veteran in New Jersey who was snatched during an ICE raid at a seafood warehouse. American citizens have been illegally detained by Trump's federal Gestapo, from school administrators to parents to military veterans to just Americans whose only crime is that they were speaking Spanish. These were legal American citizens who were arrested, interrogated, maybe just detained by ICE or Border Patrol agents, but being held until they could provide documentation or evidence proving their citizenship. You ever watch these videos? Sometimes I'll watch the videos of the free speech auditors or the people that record themselves being stopped at traffic stops. Am I free to go? Am I detained or am I free to go? What is your probable cause? Blah, 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 blah. People take issue with being stopped for no reason and being told, well, we don't suspect you of a crime, but show us your papers anyway. Show us your identification, right? Doesn't that piss you off when you see that stuff? I'm always, on the side of the people being detained unjustly. How can you Trump supporters support that thing being done to American citizens out in California and Texas and Arizona and New Jersey and all over the place? Because it's happening. Sure, most of them end up being let go after it's discovered that, oh yeah, whoops, these are American citizens. But it shouldn't be happening to begin with. That's not how you deal with the problem of illegal immigration. You don't do mass roundups. You don't send people in unmarked they don't use U-Hauls anymore, or not U-Hauls, Ryder trucks, Penske, whatever it is that they show up at Home Depot and flood out, the masked agents, no identification, got their long guns, snatching people, don't even know if they're citizens. We're just going to assume that they're illegals because there's a bunch of, they've got dark skin, they look Hispanic, and they're standing out here. So that must mean that they're day laborers. Let's just grab them and see what happens. Very few Trump supporters, even among those who support illegal dealing with the illegal immigration problem, very few of them really thought, let's go after the farm workers. Let's go grab the guy who's picking tomatoes. Let's go after the guy who's just a worker on a yard crew. Let's go after the maids working at hotels. No, you were thinking, let's go after the drug cartels. Let's go after the guys trafficking fentanyl. Let's go after the so-called rapists and murderers and all that. But that's not what's happening. It's just random grabs of people, and let's see if any of them happen to be bad guys. And most of the time, they're not actually bad guys. They may have committed the misdemeanor offense of crossing the border without authorization, but that's a very different issue than going after somebody who's an actual gang member. The guy picking your tomatoes out there is not a member of MS-13. So where are the Proud Boys? Where are the 3%ers? Why are they not mobilizing? Where are you guys? I was with you guys in the when we were out there with Cliven Bundy, escorting him to Lavoy Finnicum's funeral. I talked with you guys. I know that you don't support going after American citizens, but you got to break away from Trump at some point and say enough is enough. I'm willing to give up my MAGA community friends. I'm willing to have people pissed at me because I'm not wearing my red trucker cap anymore. If that means that you're going to get on the right side of history and get back to having, a sense of morality and virtue and integrity, regain that. Don't be the guys out there waving the flags with great big pictures of a guy wearing women's makeup so he can change his skin color. Don't be the guys out there high-fiving each other while you're joining your cult leader and dancing to the YMCA song that everybody knows is the gay anthem. What has happened to you men? It's like Trump has completely emasculated the Republican Party. I feel like I'm the same guy I've always been. I think that most of my people that have been with me for years will say, oh yeah, Jake in 2025 is the same Jake from 2015. He's saying the same stuff, preaching the same gospel, railing against the same people. I don't feel like I have changed that much. So I'm shocked to see so many people who used to be there with me are now the grifters, the social media influencers, the people that are going after the libtards because they don't like your red hat. But you're at the same time, you're having fun making fun of the libs. You're out there supporting the guy who's covering up the Epstein files, covering for the child traffickers. You're supporting the guy that's out there sending the U.S. military into the streets to grab American citizens. You're the people out there supporting the man who's attacking Iran. You're supporting the man who's out there pulling the chair for Benjamin Netanyahu. What happened to you? Why have you gone silent? Why are you standing by this drag queen despot as he does the exact things that you used to claim you would rise up against the government for? Well, I'll tell you what happened. You allowed yourselves to be brainwashed by a massive intelligence psychological operation. An Israeli-linked psyop that has managed to place a compromised, blackmailable, easily manipulatable political puppet into power so that he can do the bidding of the very people who are in these Epstein files. In the past, political persuasion was the art of rhetoric. I used to run political campaigns for candidates. You had to have good rhetoric. You had to have good broadcast advertising. You had to have strong grassroots canvassing, which was, Ron Paul's strong point. But today, it's something far more intricate, something more concealed. We've got a system in which intelligence agencies, private espionage firms, political operatives, and social media influencers all coordinating. Sometimes they're loosely aligned, sometimes more tightly aligned, but they're working in concert with one another to shape the beliefs of entire populations. This modern psychological battlefield isn't just limited to foreign countries, foreign adversaries. It's not just trying to destabilize governments overseas. It's increasingly being deployed within our own American domestic politics. It targets citizens who don't even realize, as they're scrolling through Facebook, that they're being influenced. They don't realize all of these bots or all of these messages on Twitter, they're actually bots being programmed by Unit 8200 or some other foreign intelligence or private intelligence company. And the evolution of these tactics, it's not accidental. It's not entirely new. The United States and other governments have long maintained PSYOP units. You had the CIA's Cold War era Operation Mockingbird, where they cultivate relationships with journalists to try and influence the public narrative. But what has changed in the 21st century is the scale, the speed, the deniability afforded by what we have now, which is digital technology. We now have the privatization of influence. So state agencies now operate alongside, sometimes at arm's length, through companies that have perfected the tools of mass persuasion. One of the most visible examples of this nexus, this fusion, I've talked about in the past, Cambridge Analytica, right? Data-driven political consulting firm spun out of the British parent company, SCL Group. SCL's earlier contracts included military psychological ops, that called kind of the common term is just behavioral change programs. They did this stuff in regions from Afghanistan to the Caribbean. By the time that Cambridge Analytica entered the U.S. political arena, they had the capacity to apply this psychographic profiling to tens of millions of Americans. They were harvesting data largely from Facebook, certainly without anyone's consent. Users didn't know this was happening. Cambridge Analytica was using models that identified your personality traits, identified your fears, identified your motivations. And because remember, on Facebook especially, it's not as big a deal as it used to be, but everything, you would like everything. Facebook was always pushing, all right, what are your favorite movies? Click, 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 click. What are your favorite songs? Click, 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 click. What are your favorite books? This. What are your favorite this? And you've got all these lists because you're like, oh yeah, I want my friends to know all about me, and I've read this book and I think this. But what you're doing is you're creating a massive personal psychological profile that intelligence units, companies are coming in, harvesting your data, analyzing it, figuring out, okay, so the way we get this guy based on his interest in this, and this, here's the angle. Here's what we want. We want to use targeted messaging to send this angle, this message. He cares about animals. Let's talk about this. This woman cares about this. Let's talk about that. This person really doesn't like black people. Let's talk about this. That's what they do. They would micro-target voters with tailored messaging that was designed not just to persuade you to vote for Trump, but to provoke specific emotional responses from you. Because if they can get you angry or if they can get you afraid, then you're much easier to manipulate. And that's why it is such a common thing with Trump, who was taught by Steve Bannon. He learned a lot of this from Steve Bannon, who was a master propagandist, one of the Joseph Goebbels of our day, to get the people inflamed. What was the first thing Trump talked about when he came down the golden escalator? Oh yeah, we gotta go after the bad guys. We gotta go after the rapists and all these evil people, because that gets people mobilized. If Trump had come down and saying, we really got to talk about tariffs, everybody, people were like, let's go with Jeb Bush. But no. That's not what you go after. You create the enemies. You get people worked up into an emotional state, provoke an emotional response. And that's what these intelligence related companies like Analytica did. And what made Cambridge Analytica particularly potent was that it was willing to partner with more clandestine actors. So like in 2016, during that election cycle, you've got Cambridge's executives discussing collaboration with Psy Group, for example. Psy Group is an Israeli private intelligence firm founded by Joel Zamel. Psy Group specialized in, they called it online perception management. Online perception management. It's PsyOps. They specialize in PsyOps. And they would deploy networks of fake personas, fabricated biographies, social media histories, some to infiltrate online communities, go in there and seed narratives favorable to whatever client. Now, I'm talking about Trump now, but it's going to be somebody different in the future. Who knows? Maybe next time it could be a Democrat that Psy Group and Cambridge Analytica are helping. I think what they care about is money, but they also are linked to the mega rich Zionists who have a certain agenda. So if Mega Group, for example, if those kinds of financiers think that they can accomplish their Zionist aims for Israel through a Democrat, sure, they'll back that person, but more often than not, at least in the current era we're in, they're going to have more success with a neocon Republican. But, times do change, especially if you have like running, one of the guys that's going to be running in 2028 is Rahm Emanuel. That guy actually served in the IDF. He's hardcore Israel. So sure, you could have like Cambridge Analytica, Group type companies trying to co-opt someone like Rahm Emanuel. So I'm not only against Trump. I'm talking about the system, that Trump is playing a huge role in perpetuating and helping to get more entrenched. This is like the exact opposite of draining the swamp. This is filling the swamp and breeding the swamp monsters. This is putting the alligators in there and then giving them Viagra and helping them to mate so that they can produce even more swamp monsters. That's what he's doing. According to the New York Times and other publications, Psy Group was out there pitching proposals to the Trump campaign. They were using intermediaries like George Nader. These are people that served as a conduit between Psy Group and Steve Bannon, Psy Group and Michael Flynn, big figures in the first Trump administration. Psy Group wasn't unique. There was a group called Black Cube. This is another private Israeli intelligence company, staffed largely by former Mossad officers. They've been linked to operations targeting NGOs, journalists, political opponents. Some of their assignments have been things like over in Hungary, prior to Viktor Orban's 2018 election, they were out there recording activists, producing material that state-aligned media could use to discredit opposition groups to Orban, right? So the job of these companies is to go and flip elections, flip governments, and their tactics draw from the playbooks of military psychological warfare. In U.S. doctrine, operations like Earnest Voice, developed for use in the Middle East, that involved creating sock puppets. You put your hand in the sock puppet, personas that a single person is operating, but they are using fake accounts to replicate a certain message and appear like these are genuine citizens out there that have this consistent posting history. And they created all these fake people to influence others and make them think that there are real people who think these things. And the goal was to infiltrate online discussions, guide them toward narratives favorable to U.S. objectives. This is the kind of stuff they did with QAnon, that intelligence did with the QAnon. They got onto 4chan, 8chan, got in there and influenced everything. And while Operation Earnest Voice was ostensibly aimed at foreign audiences, these tactics, these methods that they pioneered, like coordinated posting and emotional priming, plausible online identities, all of this has been adapted in the domestic political sphere here in the United States, where we've got private contractors working on behalf of certain political campaigns or advocacy groups. Bots were a huge part of the 2016 election. The Democrats blamed it on Russia. Oh yeah, Russian bots. But the truth, as I detailed in reports back during those years, wasn't Russian bots. It was Israeli intelligence and Israeli adjacent operations that were carrying out the social media psyops to swing the U.S. election. That's why Robert Mueller went silent when he started coming up with sufficient evidence during his Russiagate stuff, realizing, it's actually not Russia. This is Israel. And that's why everything kind of petered out and he went quiet. Everything kind of shut down and nothing real became of it. American voters didn't even realize in 2016 that their data from their online Facebook profiles and the other social media platforms, they didn't know that their data had been collected and sold. They didn't know that they were being targeted with astroturfed messaging. But I tried to warn people back then. Some of you remember, some of you were here back then. I was saying it. I was saying, look, it's good to have legitimate concerns about child sex trafficking operations. I was covering it. I had been covering it for a few years before any of this QAnon stuff started. I actually went out and got out there in North Hollywood. I also worked on the Washington D.C. connection to that North Hollywood ring. This is back in like 2015 through 2017. And I was talking about legitimate concerns about real networks of sex traffickers. But what I saw happening was social media influencers like, hey, this is becoming a hot topic. Let's get in on this. And we started to see the sidetracking away from legitimate, real criminal activity into these retarded theories about Hillary Clinton and the Democrats using Comet Ping Pong to traffic and cannibalize children. And that crazy theory was later rolled into the emerging QAnon conspiracy theory. I'll talk about that in just a second. Dennis says, thank you for the donation, Dennis. He says, hi, Jake. If memory serves me, you're from North Carolina, right? Why are you not taking Lindsey Graham's job? You have the brain and experience. Thank you, Dennis. That's kind of you. My two quick answers. Number one, Lindsey Graham is in South Carolina. I'm in North Carolina. So that's the first reason. But the bigger reason is, you really think someone like me could ever make it into a Senate seat? It would never happen. You can't be as virulently anti-Israel as I am and get elected to something like that. And honestly, I feel like from everything I said, Dennis, you're not far off from what my original goal was. I never intended to become a member of the U.S. Senate, but in my early 20s, my plan was to work on political campaigns for state and then federal level candidates, get myself elected to the state house or state senate, then run eventually for an open seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. And that's one reason I was up in D.C. I was networking, making connections. It was through those connections that I got my work as a campaign manager for up in Watauga County. I represented as the campaign manager several candidates at the local level. Then I started doing work for state candidates. The Secretary of Transportation here in North Carolina was a U.S. congressman from, or not U.S., North Carolina state congressman from Mount Airy, Mayberry. You know, if you've ever watched Andy Griffith, Mayberry, the real town of Mayberry is called Mount Airy. It's about 30 minutes north of me here. But anyway, the local representative, Bill Hyatt, I was his campaign manager. And then I was able to get a job working for federal candidates. I was making money as not much. I made some money working as the campaign manager, the state campaign manager for Steve Forbes, who was running for president in 2000. He ran in 1996 against Bob Dole, but lost, and then ran in 2000 trying to get the nomination before George W. Bush or John McCain could. So I was working for him as his state campaign manager. But the idea was start with this, make connections, get into the state house, and then go on from there. But what life started happening and whatever. But then when I got back to looking at it again seriously, I realized it is so corrupt and the system is so flawed. I looked at like Ron Paul, because I was a writer for his 2008 and 2012 campaigns. As principled and correct as he was on virtually everything, he never got anything done. He never got anything done in the U.S. Congress. The greatest contribution that Congressman Ron Paul ever gave to America was not he never had any, he didn't believe in expanding the size of government. His job was just in there voting no on practically everything that the House was trying to pass. Because anytime the House passes a bill and the Senate, uh, votes on it, and then the president signs it into law, all that's doing is expanding the size of the federal government. So someone like Ron Paul, he's just in there trying to slow things down. I saw the system. I spent time up in D.C. in the U.S. Capitol. I sat there watching the actual elected representatives on the House floor. My guy, my elected representative at the time was Richard Burr, and he went on to become one of our senators. But I watched them, and they didn't do jack crap. They didn't do anything of substance once they got in there. The system does not allow it. Our system is so corrupted that good people can't get much done. And that's why you see people like, so I think someone was talking about it earlier in the chat, someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I have consistently deplored. I don't like MTG, but she's right about Israel. And because she has spoken out against Israel, she's become a pariah in the Republican Party, and she's now, on the verge of leaving the party because she's got no power. But that's what it is. I saw that I could have, if I wanted to become like a political commentator or something like that, I would have far more influence than I could as a member of Congress. What Ron Paul did that was so good for America was when he ran for president. He left the Republican Party, became a libertarian in '88, ran for president, came back to the Republican Party, eventually got elected again, but he ran in 2008, 2012. The best thing Ron Paul did was he taught, he educated. He had his weekly Texas Talk or Texas Straight Talk or something like that article, which he still writes to this day. He's been doing it for decades. But then out on the campaign trail, he used his rallies. He knew he was not going to get elected president. He knew he didn't have a snowball's chance. But he taught. He taught about the Federal Reserve, the dangers of bad monetary policy, things that are boring that the general population doesn't care about, but the things that are significant really matter. He taught about that. He taught about non-interventionism. He was the only person on the stage at the Republican presidential debates speaking out against the war in Iraq while being mocked by Rudy Giuliani and the other candidates for it. The audience laughing at him. But it sunk in. Over time, it sunk in. He was consistent. He was calm. He taught correct principles. And that's what made a difference. And so my motivation originally in running for Congress was not that I wanted fame. I didn't care about the money that you get along with it. What I cared about was trying to make a difference for my country because I loved my country. I was very patriotic. It wasn't even originally, like an anti-government mindset like I've got now. It was, what can I do to serve my country, my community? And in the end, what I recognized is that since the best thing Ron Paul ever did was he taught, the best thing I can do is teach. I can educate. And I don't need to be a member of Congress to do that. I can be home here with my children, here in North Carolina, not stuck in some apartment up in Washington, D.C., turning down invitations to go to the local, whatever the next sex party is or whatever. I can be here in my own home state with my family, and I can teach through writing, which was originally what I did before I started YouTubing, was I used to write and publish articles and made some money doing that. But so anyway, that's a long answer. Sorry, I went on too long about that. I was getting ready to talk about QAnon there for a second, but Old Dirty Shinobi says, thank you for all your work, brother. Christ is King. Thanks for your donation, my good friend. I appreciate it. Let's see. I don't think I've missed anyone else. Guys, we're getting real close to hitting that goal we can get 3 more super chats in of 5 of what was the goal here? Whatever it is, you can figure it out there in the click on that thing in the chat. You can see the goal. We're getting real close to that. I appreciate your support. So, and as I jump back in here to talking, do you like what you're hearing? Like, is this good information? If so, hit the thumbs up for me out there. Let's get a quick boost with the thumbs up. Thank you, guys. So we were talking. Thank you, Joel. Got another donation in there. Thank you, good sir. We were talking a minute ago about these sex trafficking operations. I was talking a lot about the Comet Ping Pong stuff back then too, but not because I believed that there was anything going on at Comet Ping Pong. What it was the connections of the people associated with Comet Ping Pong. The people like the Maccabees, the people up there in Washington, D.C., who were part of that culture. Because, like James Alefantis, his connections, political connections to insiders in the Clinton campaign, Hillary Clinton, for example. These were issues. I understood the connections, but it radicalized, the kind of crazy thinking radicalized people, and that's why we had, what's his bucket, 45 minutes down the road from me here. What was his name? I interviewed his girlfriend and one of his family members, Edgar Welch, Edgar Madison Welch, I think was his name. The guy that went up to Comet Ping Pong with the AR-15 and, tried to shoot through the lock looking for a non-existent basement dungeon. That's what it led to. But it fed into the start of QAnon. And if you've seen anything from me over the years, whether it was the Vegas thing or the child sex trafficking, it really bugs me when there's a real issue and we get sidetracked from it because there's a juicier conspiracy theory. It doesn't matter that it's totally retarded and has no legs to support it. All these breadcrumbs from QAnon, total jackassery. But it's fun. It's titillating. It makes you feel like you're part of the in crowd. You know something no one else does. You can't explain what the hell QAnon is or what these little Q drops are. All you can do is speculate. It's like trying to read tea leaves or ink blots. It's really up to the perception of whoever's looking at it. But QAnon basically started as the idea for a LARP by DeFango, Manny Chavez. It was kind of originally his brainchild. He had come from doing the cicada puzzles, but the idea was immediately co-opted by others before it even took off, including a team of social media influencers that had connections to the Trump people. I was approached shortly after QAnon first went public. I mean, in the first couple of weeks that the first Q post took place. And they approached me because they knew that I was a big voice in the online community talking about the Pizzagate adjacent stuff. I was talking about actual sex trafficking ring based in Washington, D.C. at the time. But they tried to recruit me. They wanted me to be a part of this. They said I was going to make some money with it, that they were going to have fun, all this stuff. And anyway, of course, I didn't do it. And early on, I had no idea how big this thing was going to get. I says, peace and love, may all the madness end. Thank you so much for your donation. We're one away from hitting that goal. I appreciate you. So things kept spreading because more and more grifters and political operatives and eventually intelligence-connected assets were trying to take control of this QAnon narrative. It caught on fire. Some of the people have threatened to sue me in the past. So I have to be careful with this next part of what I'm going to say and say that these people are allegedly part of all this, okay? Allegedly. From Cicada 3301's Thomas Schoenberger to deep-pocketed donors to the Trump campaign like Ed Butowski, Eric Prince from Blackwater, whose sister Betsy DeVos became Trump's one of his I think she was Secretary of Education in his first administration. But QAnon was further exploited by CIA stooges like the late Robert David Steele, who died from COVID, former CIA, Steve Peasnick, Democrat spook General Mike Flynn, political hacks like Jack Posobiec, and so on. But after about a month, QAnon migrated from its home at 4chan over to 8chan. And this is where Jim and Ron Watkins got involved, kind of co-opted this and took over to the extent they could. And you've got the lawyer for Congressman Devin Nunes, also the guy who was the lawyer for Dan Bongino, lawyer for Kash Patel, a guy named Stephen Biss and his wife Tanya, who I have been informed is the party who originally worked with the Maccabee family to try to sue me for $5 million over my investigation into Maccabee's possible ties to the child trafficking operation of Laura Silsby in Haiti. Anyway, ultimately, the entire PSYOP ends up being exploited by Israeli intelligence to brainwash millions of people into becoming diehard supporters of Trump. This is where we've got all of these different intelligence and intelligence adjacent groups and companies and factions all coalescing toward a singular goal, which is get Trump in office. Remember, trust the plan. Where we go one, we go all. They built a community that turned into a cult. The story was Trump was recruited by the U.S. military to take down Hillary Clinton and her cabal of adrenochrome harvesting child rapists and cannibals. And any day now, just any day now, Donald Trump is going to carry out mass arrests of Hillary and her people like the Podestas and take them to Guantanamo Bay where they're going to be executed. And Trump is getting help from the late RFK Jr. or whoever. Remember all that stuff? Now, it sounds totally stupid now to most people. It sounded stupid to me all along. But I'll bet that half of the people watching me out there tonight, right now, at some point believed in this QAnon PSYOP stuff that was brainwashing them into becoming mindless automaton supporters of Donald Trump. It was just too fun to look at this connection. You've got Robert David Steele doing his daily reports of, interpreting everything and others. And so the problem that I saw and that I talked about back then was you're not just being brainwashed into becoming a mindless supporter of Donald Trump. You are becoming, by extension, supporters of the Israeli intelligence operations that are using Trump, trying to get him in power so they could execute the will of these elite Zionists who wanted to co-opt the U.S. government, including our military, so that Israel could go forward with its Nazi-esque agenda in Palestine. The very things we're seeing play out today, the genocide in Gaza, the ethnic cleansing of Gaza so that they can take full control of Gaza, the what's up next, full cleansing of the West Bank will be the next part of this. War with Iran. War with, back then it was, okay, we got Iraq. Let's get Syria. Do a little more down in Sudan. Let's get Yemen. But the big one is Iran. And I told you guys every step of the way back then. Fortunately, most of you believe me. And it's spared you from getting caught up in the cult of QAnon. You retained your intellectual autonomy while many of the people that you knew turned into zombies for Israel's agenda because they're all in on the QAnon Trump stuff. Trump didn't have any clue what any of this QAnon stuff was. He didn't know. He had a loose understanding. These were people well below him and around him doing this. And again, I don't fault people who maybe were a little tantalized by the QAnon stuff, but at some point, if you broke away, great. Now, if you stayed in it for the long haul, right up until even after even after in 2020, after Donald Trump lost the election, there were still all of the evangelical community, the Christian evangelical Zionists, and the QAnon people kept saying, either trust Jesus or trust the plan, even though Biden appears to have won, or we're being told that he won. Absolutely, on January 20th, Donald J. Trump was going to be inaugurated because the prophets had said so. All of the evangelical prophets, the grifters out there, had said so. Trump is and always has been a Trojan horse. He is used by people. He does a lot of bad stuff, but he is also a tool in the hands of people who have their own agendas. They manipulate him with flattery. It's not hard to win Trump over. You just have to kiss his ass. Trump supporters are the Trojans who allowed Israel to enter into the city gates by hiding inside of the attractive-looking persona of Donald Trump and this, make America great again shtick. The bottom line is this. We've got a former Democrat who trained himself to talk like a Republican on the campaign trail. He made grand promises that he never intended to keep. Maybe if Trump had actually built that wall that you all wanted and had made Mexico pay for it, as he promised a million times, maybe we wouldn't have all these illegal border crossings. But it became clear that mostly the whole build the wall thing was just a campaign trick to get people to support him that he never fully had any intention of doing. But I long ago gave up on expecting the hardcore Trumpers to call him out on things like building the border wall. To this day, most hardcore Trumpers believe the wall was built. I've given the stats before from the Trump and Biden. Which division is it? I forget which U.S. department has the stats, but it showed that outside of existing border wall that was already there before Trump took office, Obama era border wall, aside from that was either repaired or rebuilt, until up through not just Trump years, but through the Biden years, only 60 something miles of new border wall was completed out of that 1,000 mile long stretch that Trump said he was going to build. And that's the case to this day. The wall has not been built. But anyway, and I'm not against the idea of the wall. I think it would slow things down. It would probably help. But anyway, the same experience. But here's the libertarian in me, though. A wall that is built to keep people out is a wall that is built to keep people in. Should the time come that we have a despot who turns the U.S. military against the people, or build some kind of federal Gestapo that comes against us, and we try and flee, that same border wall that keeps the Mexicans out is going to be the border wall that keeps us from getting to some other place to safety. So it is a two-edged sword. Just remember that. But anyway, the same experience tells me that no matter what Donald Trump does today with the Epstein stuff or Iran or anything else, no matter how many federal stormtroopers he deploys in the U.S. cities, no matter how many U.S. citizens are hurt by these political theatrics, no matter how viciously he shreds the U.S. Constitution, some people are never, ever going to be able to free their minds from his control or from the control of the intelligence psyop that co-opted their brains to begin with. Some of them, though, this Jeff Epstein stuff, this Epstein scandal, is the straw that broke the camel's back, or the straw that freed their minds and finally woke them up that Trump is not what they thought he was. And that is a reason for us to keep talking about it. Because of all the things that Trump has done to demonstrate that he's compromised, that he's under the control of people who have leverage over him, this Epstein scandal shines a brilliant light upon these shady actions that he's taking as president. I think that George W. Bush was an enemy of the people of the United States. I believe that Obama and Biden were wretched presidents. But I know of no president in the last century, at least, to be as obviously corrupt, compromised, and controlled as the man in the Oval Office today, who is orchestrating the most sinister political cover-up in U.S. history. Because there's nothing more sinister than trying to protect intelligence networks that run child sex trafficking rings, that take children and rape them or pimp them out like whores to rich people. Nothing is more evil than that. So I call on every Trump supporter who has a shred of conscience remaining to permanently sever ties with this cult that you were programmed to be loyal to. Free yourselves of the programming. Take a stand today against the same evils that you used to stand against before you were brainwashed during the Trump years by these intelligence psyops. Join me and those in this chat. There is a community here. You won't be alone. There are a lot of us out here. We are demanding that the Epstein files be released to the public. The DOJ has been so compromised, nobody can argue that it's a neutral body that's going to do the right thing when it comes to this Epstein stuff. Don't trust the federal government on this Epstein scandal. If Pam Bondi says, oh yeah, there's nothing to this. If Kash Patel, Dan Bongino say, yeah, there's nothing to this. I'm telling you, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, they're the guy who represented them. There's a lot of trouble I could get in to talk about this network. I'm not going to because I know the lawfare that will result. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut on that for now. But I'm telling you, there are some bad people that are widely trusted and praised by the Trump community. If you knew some of the stuff that I know. So if there's nothing that points to Trump being guilty, he shouldn't be afraid to release these Epstein files. But he is afraid. He's very afraid. He refuses to release the documents for some reason. And that, my dear Trump supporters, ought to be ringing every alarm bell in your mind right now. Don't let him distract you with this political theater that's going on in Washington, D.C., and that he may expand. Don't stop demanding the full release of the Epstein files. If you're not on board with this, don't you ever dare post again on social media about how we need to save the children, because you don't actually believe in it. We need your courage, not your hypocrisy. Phil H. says, later, can you give opinion on Friday with Trump Putin? Is it time to take a vacation or bug out? I live near Air Force Base. Remember what they did to Iran on day 60. Hey, Phil, how are you doing, my friend? Friday with Trump. No, it's not time to. we are not at the point of needing to bug out. We're good. But you still, here's what I would advise to people. It's not like some sudden big event that comes out of nowhere that gets us. It's meddling in things that ought not to be meddled with. It's getting involved in the geopolitics of other countries where sooner or later something is going to happen. If this was like in the Obama years, I would be saying, work on your food storage, work on water, storing water, some things like that. Build up some financial reserves, some physical reserves like gold, silver, things like that. But here we are, and I still feel the same way. I think that it is very important for us to have uh, food security. We have we have insurance on our cars. Not that we are expecting our cars to get smashed, not that we're expecting to hit somebody, but we have insurance on our cars. Same with our houses. We don't expect that our house is going to burn down. We think it'll probably never happen, but what if? So we have house insurance to protect our investment. We have different kinds of insurance, life insurance. Why not have food insurance? Food insurance is having food stored up in the house. It's not that you should expect that you're going to have some, collapse of the system where we can't eat or get access to food from the store. But what if? What if something happened? I mean, remember how the shelves went bare during COVID. Panic buying can be a dangerous thing. So that's why I recommend a measured preparation. Build up, every time you go to the store, pick up a couple extra cans of food. Do this each week that you grocery shop. Get a little extra. You probably can't afford to do a whole lot all at once, so you just do a little bit. And over time, you build it up. You buy things that are non-perishable, things that you can sit on your shelf, canned foods, things like that you can have, so that should something happen, whether you find yourself suddenly out of work or the system collapses and maybe you've relied on SNAP benefits or something and now you can't access it because the system's not working, or some calamity happens. Maybe Trump, he's certainly using some crazy rhetoric right now, basically saying, Putin, you better agree to whatever my ceasefire terms are or you're going to be in big trouble. I mean, you don't screw around talking to Vladimir Putin like that. He's calm and collected, but the guy is not somebody to try and push around. And Donald Trump might just be getting so old, and the dementia might be starting to kick in, where he thinks, I've gotten away with everything in the past. I hit Iran and nothing happened. I'll tell Putin what to do, and I'll threaten him with military action. I'll threaten to send my B-2 bombers to do to Moscow what they did there to Natanz in Iran. He may be stupid enough to make a threat like that. That would be a huge mistake. I don't think that anything huge would happen immediately, but there's potential. So protect yourself, build up some food for your family so that you've got, first of all, a couple weeks worth of extra food for every member of your household. Build it up to a couple of months and keep expanding. I've got about, well, I won't say how much because I don't want my house targeted in the event of a collapse, but I've got enough to take care of my family, at least for a while. Same with water. You want to have water stored up in case the water supplies become either poisoned because of, I don't know, some biological, chemical, or radiation, or just no electricity and you can't pump water where you're at. Have some water stored up. Just take good common sense actions. I still believe in being prepared. Be prepared. Thank you for the donation, Phil. R Factor, thank you for your donation. Phil, it was either you or R Factor that put us over the top here, hit that donation goal. So thank you so much, R Factor. You're awesome. And then we've got ZMCG. Thank you for educating and for facilitating a community of clever folks. Thank you, ZMCG. Maybe it was you. One of you guys hit the number 15. Maybe it was you. I appreciate you. Yeah, I think we've got a freaking awesome community. So here is where we are at. We are at the point of doing the hangman. And I'm gonna, let me take a look here at, how can I do this? Originally, what I was gonna do at this point was a 2-minute music interlude to allow people time to do $1 super chats, and I was going to use those people to play the game. but we've got so many people that have made other donations. Maybe that's the way to do it. And that way you guys will get a double chance here. So let me start writing your names down. In fact, I may play some music anyway while I start to do this. I doubt I will have the names all done in time, but we'll see. Bear with me. Somewhere around here, I should have, yeah, something that shows me. All right, so we're going to do this game in a second. So if anybody wants to get a super chat donation in of $5 or more before we're up, you guys are going to be in the thing here. So let me get a little music started, and then I'm going to start writing down names. Probably need to turn the music down. I'm gonna do a couple drawings here because we have got so many people here. Well, we're getting close. Let's see. How can I do this? I just wrote down Dennis. Okay. All right. I've got an idea because I ran out of spaces on the thing here. I've got Joel down. We do Phil. Did I get Phil? Sorry, guys. I'm almost done here. Yeah, I got Phil. R factor / R factor. I don't have my glasses on, so I'm scribbling. And then ZCMG. All right. All right, let me make sure I got everybody here. All right. I'm going to show you the names and show you how I'm doing this for this all right, we got you all there. So I am going to do the drawing first. I was going to do this at the end. but I'm going to do the drawing for either the hat or the Epstein air freshener slash Substack, free month of Substack. And here's what I've done. Because I've got a few more names on here, let me find my camera so I can look at it. All right. I've got a few more names on here than would fit. So I've got, for example, Ernie Truth. But what I did was I added on here Old Dirty. All right. So I've got Ernie, Flick, Off, Cicero, Tariq, Joe, Phil, Diligent, Carol, H. Bond, Joel, PM, Dennis, and then I added Old Dirty, IMI, R. Let's see what that says. What was that name again? Let me look over here. R Factor. Sorry, I scribbled it on there and I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read it. And then ZCMG. So if it lands on one where there's two names, then we will, I'll split it. I'll do a second spin to determine between that who gets it. And I'll show you as we go. All right, so let me switch over here to, and I also have to double check to make sure the person's in the chat, because if they're not in the chat, I'll need to give it to somebody else. All right, so I'm going to move this over. All right, so I know you can't hear me as well, but this is the arrow that points up. Let's do a spin. All right. Spinning, spinning, spinning. It's slowing down. And it's going to stop on, is it? Yeah, from this angle, I can definitely see it is Joel. So Joel. Joel, are you out there in the chat? All right, there's Joel Dalton. Joel Dalton. Man. And Joel, you know, I had thought earlier, geez, Joel and Phil did multiple donations. I wonder if I should split them up and give them, you know, more entries, but I'm just doing one per person. But it landed on you anyway, Joel. So, Joel, you get to pick. You can either have a Blackstone cap, or whoops, let me turn this. You want the cap. All right, so Joel, Jake at blackstoneintel.com. I may have your address in there still, but I don't know. But email me at jake at blackstoneintel.com. And just give me your address in there, and I'll send you a cap. Nice job, everybody, with the donations. Now, let's do Hangman. Here's how I'm going to do Hangman, because there's too many people here for me to do everybody. So I'm going to do this. I'm only looking at $1 super chats. Anyone who makes, I'll do the 2-minute music thing. Anyone who does a $1 super chat, so we're starting fresh, $1 super chat, we'll enter you in, and you will be on the list to play Hangstein, which is our Jeff Epstein hangman game. So we'll give it 2 minutes here. Hopefully this won't be too loud. Let me turn it down a little bit. All right. Two minutes, and I'm going to start writing your names down. All right, Dennis is in the hangman game. Yeah, it's not Pink Floyd. Wish I could play Pink Floyd, but they would demonetize me. Not demonetize me, I'd get a copyright strike. All right, ZCMG is in it. ZMCG. I'm saying it wrong. ZMCG. Joseph Roberts, the overachiever. Thank you, Joseph. All right, so we have got 3 people in the hangman game so far. Remember, this is a chance to win a Jeff Epstein, this air freshener didn't hang himself, or if you've already got one, we'll give you a Substack subscription. All right, we've only got 3 people in the hangman game so far. Last chance, it's running out. Okay, so we have got 3 people. And for the rest of you, by the way, anyone who was in that made one of those other all right, Cicero is in. Let me add Cicero. Oh, Cicero is in. Carol is in. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Cicero. What I was going to say is that anybody from that previously donated the $5 or more, if you would like a consolation prize, it's not much, but if you would email me your address to jake@blackstoneintel.com, I'd be happy to write you a personal thank you letter and mail that to you. It's up to you. Don't have to, but I'd be glad to send you something. All right. So we've got 5 contestants: Dennis, ZMCG, Joseph R, Cicero, and Carol. Okay, so here's how it goes. First of all, I don't have a way of restricting the chat to only the contestants, so I ask that if you're not a contestant, shut up. Don't give your answers. In the last game, we had somebody give it away early. Don't give it away. So when it's your turn, you're going to pick a letter. If it's on there, I'll write it on the board, and then if it's not, I'll write it off to the side. And then after that, you've got 10 to 15 seconds to take a guess at what it is. And I'll give you a clue in a second. And then after your turn, we'll go to the next person and keep going. Now, if it's not your turn, but you have figured it out, cross your fingers and hope that no one else announces it before you, because you can only give the answer when it is your turn. Okay? We're just going to go in order. That order again is Dennis, ZMCG, Joseph, Cicero, and Carol, in that order. Let me add in a little bit of background music here. This may not be loud enough for anyone to hear. It's just so it's not totally quiet. Okay. This is the board. This is going to be our hangman game. The clue is either a broad range: intelligence operations, sex trafficking, compromat, something related to an Epstein-like compromising intel operation. Some person connected to something like that. Okay, so this is not going to be easy. All right, so let's start with Dennis. Dennis, pick a letter. Okay, Dennis picks the letter E. And there is no E, so Jeff Epstein has a head up on the hangman noose there. All right, Dennis, do you have a guess? If not, just say pass. Okay, next up we have got ZMCG. Give us a letter. Okay, he gives us S. We've got one S. And you've got 15 seconds to give us a guess. Pass. All right. Joseph, it is your turn, Joseph. Give us a letter. R. No R. So if you have a guess, go ahead and take it, otherwise pass. All right, Joel. Better zip it. All right, Joseph passes. Now Cicero. Give us a letter, Cicero. Looking for a letter from Cicero. Come on, Cicero. I know you're out there. I'm going to give Cicero 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7. Choose a vowel. That's fine, but you got to choose a vowel. Yeah. Cicero can choose a vowel. 3 seconds. 2, 1. All right, Cicero might be having some trouble out there. Okay, let's go on to Carol. Carol, you are up, Carol. Give us a letter. Yes, maybe Cicero chose T for toilet. Very possible. Maybe the CIA got Cicero. Oh, there's Cicero. All right, since Cicero got in here before Carol did, let's go. I'm going to go ahead and give Cicero the chance to answer. Cicero says, I believe that's an I. We'll say it's an I. And the goal here for us is to finish the game before people start Epsteining themselves from having to listen to this music. All right, so Cicero. There's your letter. If you have a guess, give it to us. Otherwise, pass. Well, you gotta. Oh, is that letter? Well, I gave it to you as I. That looks like a lowercase I to me. That original one. All right, so there's an I. All right, yeah, you got to guess. If not, let's go ahead and move on. Carol says F. All right. All right. Well, there's no letter L, so I'll just go ahead and tell you that. There's no letter L anyway. Speaking of gaslighting. All right. Yep, so no letter L. I think he just wants to get Epstein. Okay. No L. But we're going to go with Carol's F. You got to hold on there, Dennis. So Carol's letter F. No F. Okay, no F, Carol. If Carol has a guess. Okay. So we're going to go to Dennis. Dennis said A. All right, so I'm going to do A, and then Dennis, after I show you, you'll have the chance to guess. And after that, the next up on deck is going to be ZMCG. So let me write this in. All right, everybody give Dennis a minute here. And if you don't have a guess, Dennis, you can just tell us to pass. All right, he passes. So we are to ZMCG. ZMCG. O. All right, Carol says pass. O for ZMCG. All right. ZMCG, there's your letter. And if you have a guess, give it to us. He passes. Okay. Next, Joseph. Joseph, what's your letter? Joseph says T. This is a tough one. No T, unfortunately. If you have a guess, let us know. All right. So we're going to be back to Cicero. What's your letter, Cicero? Cicero's got a little bit of a delay. And Carol, be watching in the chat, because after Cicero gives us a letter, and either if he passes, then it's going to be back to you. So I am going to turn the Hangstein music off for a second, because it's kind of driving me nuts. All right, Cicero, I'm gonna start giving you a timer here, because I think we maybe have some kind of delay with yours. Where's my clock? Stopwatch. All right, I'm gonna give like a 30-second timer for each person from now on to allow enough time. Yeah, nobody has guessed P yet, but we are waiting for Cicero. T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. There we are. Cicero says K. All right, now we're starting to get somewhere. Wow. Write this better. I was trying to write at an angle and it came out looking really bad. This isn't much better, but all right, Cicero, do you have a guess on this one? And remember, if anyone guesses it before it's your turn, keep it to yourself. And if you're in the chat there, if you're just watching the show, keep it to yourself, or I'll have to kick you out for goofing with the game. No answers other than the people who are in the game. So Cicero, I've got your clock running here. Cicero says the letter K. You're messing with me. There's your K right there. It could be that you're answering multiple times because there's like a delay. You might want to, well, you don't have to. It might mess you up, but you might want to refresh after it's your turn. Joel, it's 2 words. It's 2 words. Yeah, Cicero's still saying the letter K. Yeah, the K is there, right there. All right, well, don't answer HNN if you know it. Don't answer. Don't answer. Let's give them a chance. Because whoever is next in line would win it if you give the answer early. Because as long as they respond. All right. Yeah, I know it's a tough one. All right, Cicero, I'm giving you 10 seconds here. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Yeah, there could be a little delay here. Let me check my live feed. I'm gonna put my hand up in front of it so I can see. No, there's only like a 2-second delay from what I'm seeing, so you might need to refresh. My first modem was a 300 baud modem that I used. I had a TRS-80, a Radio Shack TRS-80 keyboard that I would hook up to my just TV, to the back of the TV. And then manually, after you dial the number, I'd hit that button on the external 300 baud modem went to make it connect. And we'd call up, this is like in the mid 80s, early 80s, call up BBSs and participate on the message boards. My dad was a troll before trolling was a thing. This is back long before the internet. Oh yeah, you started with 110 baud. Yeah. That's crazy. 110 baud is nothing. That's amazing. Yeah, I used my little external 300 baud, and it was so cool back then. I felt like such a hacker. But we'd go on message boards, and that's when I started back then doing political debates as a kid. But my dad also taught me how to troll, and it was fun, the pranks and stuff we do. Cicero guessed it. Adnan Khashoggi. Adnan Khashoggi. All right, first of all, Cicero, you win. The Jeff Epstein didn't hang himself. So Jake, everybody cheer for Cicero. Jake at blackstoneintel.com is my email address. You have to send me a message with your address if you want to receive it. Otherwise, I cannot transmit it to you through osmosis or any other way. Yay! Well, thank you all for your donations. Now, why did I do Adnan Khashoggi? What does this have to do? It actually fits in a little bit with the theme. Multiple credit. I've talked about Khashoggi many times over the years, and even recently I talked some. Multiple credible accounts say that Adnan Khashoggi, who was a Saudi arms dealer, he had deep ties to Western and Eastern, Middle Eastern intelligence circles. He was using his yacht for more than just a party venue. I've talked about his yacht many times. Hey, good night, Schnabbles. Thanks for hanging out with us. But anyway, he's got this huge yacht. It was called the Nabila, or the Nabila, named after his daughter. 281-foot long luxury super yacht. It had communications gear on it. Multiple investigative journalists and former intel sources say that it had hidden surveillance equipment. It had concealed cameras, including inside of the guest suites. And Khashoggi threw parties a lot on the yacht with royals, politicians, corporate magnates, entertainers. Sometimes he flew in some floozy women for the purpose of sexual entertainment. Now, put two and two together. What's he doing? This setup, from the lavish hospitality combined with his surveillance, this was a classic intelligence honey trap operation used by intelligence services all around the world to gain compromise on high-profile targets. Some people that have written about this, like Anthony Summers, have said that Khashoggi's yacht or the gatherings on this yacht were being coordinated with the CIA, with the Mossad, and with Saudi intelligence, all three. And Khashoggi himself had documented relationships with all three intelligence organizations. Because remember, we talked about back when I was talking about the Iran-Contra stuff, Khashoggi was a middleman in arms dealing during the Iran-Contra affair. So the combination of the guest list, the surveillance allegations, Khashoggi's role as a fixer in covert arms trafficking transactions, this guy was also involved in honey trap operations like Epstein was doing. So this pattern of luxury hospitality being used as a front for gathering compromise very closely resembles what our good friend Jeffrey Epstein was doing. Very similar. Very similar. We need an Adnan Khashoggi air freshener. What we need is a Robert Maxwell tea bag, for dunking in the water like the Mossad dunked him into the ocean. Maybe one that says this guy didn't teabag himself or something. I don't know. Anyway, and it was in 1988 that Donald Trump bought Adnan Khashoggi's yacht from him. This yacht that's being used for sex trafficking operations, Trump bought it. Isn't that interesting? $29 million. He renamed it the Trump Princess after his own little girl. And he used it primarily as for luxury branding. But he sold it in 1991 to Prince Al-Walid bin Talal of Saudi Arabia when Trump was having financial troubles. Anyway. ZMCG, yeah, that's the perfect name for the Robert Maxwell tea bag. The Bob Maxwell. It's pretty good. I like that. Waterboard air freshener. So let me take just a minute or two here and talk about do the movie review. How long have I been on? 2 hours, 38 minutes. Okay. Wag the Dog. Give me a thumbs up out there if you have seen this movie. It's from 1997. Wag the Dog. And I'll add this in. There may not be enough interest out there in it. If anyone is interested in purchasing, I've got several of these Epstein air fresheners. If anyone wants to just outright purchase one, email me at jake@blackstoneintel.com. And what I can do is just set up like a $10, $10. That would cover shipping as well, the mailing costs. And you can pay me my PayPal or Cash App or whatever works for you. Normally I would put these things on my my shop, but if you're like, dang it, I really wanted to get that, win that drawing tonight. If you want to buy one, just contact me. Jake@blackstoneintel.com. Say, hey, Jake, I would like to buy one of those Epstein air fresheners. Okay. Jake@blackstoneintel.com. Cicero, make sure you remind me that you won the prize. Okay. Tell me which prize it was. How do I get the AI image you had of Trump and Bush? I don't remember which one that is, Phil. Trump and... I don't remember a picture of Trump and Bush. You'll have to tell me what it was from. But anyway, I'll watch the chat here a little bit. Well, let me start talking about this movie. So imagine this. What if the president of the United States was caught in a sex scandal just 2 weeks before an election? And instead of facing it head on, saying, owning up to it, imagine if he had a team that decides to invent a war to distract the American people from his scandal. So that's the premise of Barry Levinson's satire called Wag the Dog. And the film opens with a political crisis. You've got a U.S. president that has allegedly made sexual advances toward a young woman. I think she's called a Firefly girl, like a page. Has made sexual advances toward a young woman inside the White House. And his team needs to bury this story fast because the election's only a couple of, just days away. So this is where we've got the political fixer, Conrad Breen, who is played by Robert De Niro. Yeah, poor Albania. Played by Robert De Niro. Now, I got to say real quick, I loved some of De Niro's early stuff. I liked him in Deer Hunter and some other things years ago. I really don't, even though he's anti-Trump, I don't like Robert De Niro, all of his politicking. I don't find him to be very articulate and not my cup of tea. But, great in gangster movies. Really good in gangster stuff. But anyway, you've got this character in the movie, Conrad Breen, who is the equivalent of Donald Trump's Stephen Miller. Okay, a shadowy political spin doctor. He's got a calm demeanor, but a ruthless understanding of media manipulation. And Breen doesn't flinch when he's given this assignment of fixing the president's sex scandal PR problem. Instead, he just calmly explains, no problem. The American people aren't going to remember this scandal if they're distracted by something bigger. And that bigger thing is a war. Problem is, wars, real wars at least, they're real messy. They're expensive. So, next best thing. Breen calls in Hollywood producer Stanley Motz, who's kind of like a Stanley Kubrick kind of person in a way. It's played by Dustin Hoffman. Okay, Dustin Hoffman is the Hollywood producer. And Breen says, look, we need to fabricate a war. I need you to create a war. And so what follows is a meticulously planned media spectacle. They choose Albania, as ZMCG points out, as the enemy, because who knows anything about Albania? Who knows what's going on? So they create fake footage of a peasant girl who is played by a young Kirsten Dunst. Kirsten Dunst had not yet done things like Spider-Man and everything else. She had done a couple very small roles. Probably her biggest role as a kid was playing Claudia, I think her name was, in Interview with a Vampire with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. She was the little girl who had a thirst for blood. But anyway, so she's this little girl, this peasant girl, fleeing a burning village that has been attacked by a terrorist. Now, of course, the footage of this girl is created on a soundstage. They're using a green screen. She's holding a bag of Tostitos chips. They didn't know yet what they wanted for her to be carrying, so they've got her carrying a bag of chips. And they later use CGI to turn the bag of chips into a white cat that she's carrying as she's running from the explosions and everything. The political team recruits a hit songwriter who in the movie is played by Willie Nelson. And they want him to write a patriotic anthem so they can use the music to manipulate public sentiment in favor of war. Kind of like how, is it Glenn Greenwood? What's the guy's name that wrote the I'm Proud to Be American, an American? I'm proud to be an American. I heard that song so many times growing up especially in the late 80s. My stepdad, you guys may know, was a sniper assassin from the Phoenix program that the CIA was running. He was recruited out of the Marines. He was a sniper in the Marines in Vietnam. They recruited him, and he did all kinds of dirty work for the CIA during Vietnam and in the subsequent years. But he was one of these guys that's, hardcore Vietnam vet, America, America. And so we were always going to rallies and stuff for, supporting Vietnam vets and things like that. And every single rally, there was the Pledge of Allegiance, and then there was the playing of I'm Proud to Be an American. And without fail, all of the men, as they're standing there with their hats off while the song is played, all of the wives, tears running down their faces, their cheeks, because the music had that effect. I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. I won't forget the man who died to give that right to me, and I proudly stand up next to you. Anyway, that song was, it wasn't commissioned by the CIA or anything, but that song has been used to this day in rallies to manipulate people emotionally. And so in the movie, they do that. They have Willie Nelson write a patriotic anthem. And so just like in real life, the media in the movie swallows all of this, the propaganda, the war, the having to go after the terrorists in Albania. And the media goes and they're amplifying the propaganda, because the media is always complicit in this. They're part of the nexus that manufactures public approval for warfare. And in this case, it happened to be war against a non-existent threat in Albania. Now, remember, all of this is a handful of years before the 9/11 attacks, when the American public was tricked into supporting global war effort to fight Al-Qaeda. Things begin to spiral for the team when the CIA gets involved in this fake war in the movie. And you end up with this confrontation between Breen and with the CIA director. And you have a new plot twist to come out of all this. And one of the plot twists is they now have to use this fake soldier who's, allegedly part of all of this. And the guy's played by Woody Harrelson. And things take unexpected turns, because it turns out that Woody Harrelson actually can't really speak. They took him out of prison for it. He's not actually a soldier, and he's crazy. And so they have to kill him off, and then they have to bring him back. And it's just funny stuff. I'll tell you an interesting fact. The guy from the movie Wag the Dog, who plays the CIA director, was actor William Macy. William Macy, which is an odd choice, because the CIA director throughout much of the 80s that was involved in a lot of dirty stuff like Iran-Contra was CIA Director William Casey. So they got William Macy to come play the role of real-life William Casey. I don't know. That could be total coincidence, or they could have picked William Macy because of that as kind of an inside joke. But anyway, the film's brilliance isn't just in the absurdity of the plot, but in how eerily plausible all of this feels. Wag the Dog was released in December 97. This is just 1 month before the Lewinsky scandal broke in the U.S., which broke in January 98. That's when the U.S. Public learned that Bill Clinton had sexual relations with an intern named Monica Lewinsky. But the most damning parallel comes on December 16th at the end of that year. That's the day that the U.S. House began debating Clinton's impeachment. And that same day, Bill Clinton launched the operation I talked about earlier, Desert Fox, a 4-day bombing campaign of Iraq. And he was citing Saddam Hussein's failure to comply with weapons. And so basically, Bill Clinton was wagging the dog. That's what he was doing. Now, if you recall the reports that I did 2019, 2020, somewhere in there, about the Lewinsky scandal and Bill Clinton, you'll remember that I talked about how Israel played a role in that whole mess because the Mossad knew about the affair between Clinton and Lewinsky before it became public. Why? Because they had the phones tapped, including Lewinsky's. They had hours of recorded conversations between Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. And so when the United States refused to release a notorious Mossad spy that they had had in prison since the 80s, a guy named Jonathan Pollard, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, yeah, he was PM back then, he tried to blackmail Clinton into getting Pollard released. Yeah, Bill Clinton was shagging. Bill Clinton wasn't wagging the dog. He was shagging the dog. Bill Clinton was shagging everything. Jonathan Pollard was a U.S. Navy intelligence analyst who became a traitor and started spying for Israel in the 1980s. He provided Israel thousands of classified documents that revealed U.S. intelligence operations, U.S. satellite capabilities, U.S. surveillance data related to Arab states that Israel didn't like, and also related to the Soviet Union. Pollard got caught in 1985, and in 1987, they sentenced him to life in prison, not getting out. Now, the problem for Israel is this guy not only knows a whole lot more than what he's already told them, what he got busted for. He knows more, and they want to glean that information. But also, he had learned a lot about Israeli intelligence and knew the names of a lot of the handlers who had worked with him. And Israel did not want the USA to get that information. And they knew as long as he's in prison, they're going to keep holding him in there with promises that maybe they'll let him out early if he betrays Israel. So they want him out. So in October of 1998, during the Wye River Memorandum negotiations, these were negotiations that were kind of aimed at salvaging the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. In comes Netanyahu, and he unexpectedly adds to the demands that the USA release Jonathan Pollard as part of this deal, basically saying, we're not going along with this peace plan unless you release Pollard. Now, Bill Clinton really needed this, this thing to go through. He's trying to wag the dog, right? But skip back to the beginning of the year, January 98. That's when Lewinsky's friend, supposed friend, Linda Tripp, who Linda worked over at the Pentagon. Linda was secretly recording Monica Lewinsky, telling her about her dalliances with Bill Clinton. Well, Linda took these tapes that she made of Lewinsky to Kenneth Starr. Ken Starr had previously been serving as the independent counsel who was investigating the Clinton real estate scandal back in Arkansas known as Whitewater. So Ken Starr investigating Whitewater throughout the early 90s. Tripp gives these tapes to Starr. Starr leaks the information to a fledgling unknown internet outlet called Drudge Report. And this leak and them promoting this story, that's what rocketed Drudge Report to national prominence. That's how Drudge Report became a thing, Matt Drudge. So throughout, from January 98 on, Clinton is fighting to keep this affair a secret. He's lying back and forth, including lying under oath about the affair. And it's not, the issue wasn't so much about him having sex with an intern. The problem was Paula Jones was suing him, accusing him of sexual assault. And the prosecution was trying to prove that Bill Clinton had a pattern of taking sexual advantage of the people under him, of his subordinates. So the issue here for Clinton, legally speaking, was not that he had sex with Lewinsky. The issue was that he was telling Lewinsky, who was subpoenaed to testify in the Paula Jones trial against Clinton. Clinton was telling Lewinsky to lie under oath to subvert the success of the Paula Jones case against him. Okay, that's the real scandal, not the sex. It's that a sitting U.S. president who is sworn to uphold the U.S. Constitution is telling someone under him who he had sex with to lie under oath, to subvert justice, to subvert the constitutional system that he was sworn to protect. That was the scandal. So he's trying to keep this stuff quiet. He's lying all throughout. So by October 98, when the Wye River negotiations are taking place with Israel, Clinton is now in a very precarious position. He has doubled down over and over and over. He's got all of his chips in the pot. He cannot afford for evidence to come out that, in fact, he was having sex with Lewinsky. Here's Israel, specifically Netanyahu, saying we've got all of these recordings. We want Pollard out. Now, Netanyahu did not directly threaten. He didn't say, if you don't release Pollard, we are going to release this stuff. Netanyahu's, much more sly than that. He said, Israeli intelligence has intercepted some very interesting things that I'm sure are going to be disturbing to you, and I'm coming to you as a friend. I want you to know that we have access to all of this stuff that someone else did. We don't know where it came from, but we've got it. And just so you know, it does exist. And by the way, we want Pollard out. So Clinton knew he's got to play ball. He was compromised. So a release of the tapes would result not only in his impeachment, but almost certainly his removal from office. So because it'd be so much damning evidence. If you've got hours of Bill Clinton having sex talk with Monica Lewinsky after he's told the public and has lied under oath that he did not do any of this, he wouldn't just be impeached, they would have kicked him out. Even the Democrats would have voted to remove him from office. So that's the danger here that Clinton is in. Now, despite Pollard being a super spy, a traitor for Israel against America, Clinton's like, I got to do it. And so he started the process. He was going to give clemency to Pollard. But when word of the possible release leaked out, CIA Director George Tenet said, I'm going to resign and go public with this if you release Pollard. FBI officials, intelligence agencies, members of Congress from both parties, they're outraged at the idea of this. They are saying, this will not happen, Bill. Intelligence veterans are saying that releasing Pollard is going to be a huge betrayal of national security and that Bill Clinton could be impeached for that. So this is now going to be a disaster for Clinton politically if he releases Pollard. And he's trying to avoid a political disaster. So he backs down, but he still did something for Israel. What was that? 2 months later, Bill Clinton attacked Iraq, which is something that Netanyahu had been pressuring the United States to do for years and specifically had been trying to get Clinton to attack Iraq. So think about these parallels here. Just like cleanse your palate. In the late 1990s, Israel wants the United States to attack Iraq. The U.S. president resists. Netanyahu then meets with the U.S. president, Bill Clinton, and as reported at the time by U.S. media, Netanyahu said something to Clinton privately that incensed him. And not long after that meeting, Clinton orders attacks on Iraq. Wag the dog. Compare that to this year. Israel wants the United States to attack Iran. The U.S. president resisted. Netanyahu met with President Trump, as reported by our media. Their meeting ended early. They had a scheduled press conference that was canceled. Trump was apparently angry at something Netanyahu had told him. something related to attacking Iran. Just a few months later, Trump orders attacks on Iran, reversing the position he had been taking up until that point. Now, using basic logic, if Netanyahu used the Lewinsky tapes to strong-arm Clinton into attacking Iraq, what do you think Netanyahu used to strong-arm Trump into attacking Iran? Do you really think it's a coincidence that on the very day that Netanyahu had this meeting with Trump at the White House, public record, July 7th, last month, July 7th, what else happened on July 7th, ladies and gentlemen? That was the same day that Pam Bondi announced that the Epstein case was closed and that there was no evidence that any other parties had done anything wrong. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. All of the people, all of these rich Zionist Jews from MAGA Group and from other foundations and associations that are linked to Jeff Epstein are now safe. Trump has Pam Bondi announce on the day he meets with Netanyahu that the Epstein stuff is done. Nothing to see here. Move on. And if you don't move on, you're weak and you're stupid. Do you really think it's a coincidence that Ken Starr, the lawyer who went after the impeachment of Bill Clinton at the time that Israel's trying to strong-arm Bill Clinton, Ken Starr, the guy who served as one of Jeff Epstein's defense attorneys to help him get the sweetheart deal, through Acosta, Alex Acosta, the guy that Trump made Secretary of Labor. Ken Starr also ended up as one of Trump's impeachment lawyers. Ken Starr going after Clinton at the same time Israel was. Ken Starr working for Jeff Epstein, the guy who was doing work for powerful Zionists working for Israel. Ken Starr, the guy who goes after defends Donald Trump. Isn't it a coincidence that Trump's impeachment lawyers, along with Ken Starr, included Pam Bondi and Jeff Epstein's lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, who had worked with Ken Starr back in 2007, 2008. Is it a coincidence that Trump's lawyer, Pam Bondi, who worked with Epstein's lawyers, is now Donald Trump's attorney general, the one who is in charge of managing the Epstein stuff? The woman who announced the end of the Epstein investigation on the very day Netanyahu had his spat with Donald Trump over Iran. Just like Israel had Clinton over a barrel with the Lewinsky scandal, I believe that Israel has Trump over a barrel with the Epstein scandal. And that's why Trump is doing what Bill Clinton did right now. Donald Trump is wagging the dog, at least trying to, with all this stuff in Washington, D.C., trying to steal headlines, trying to get the public to stop talking about Epstein. In the film, the lies keep growing until the filmmaker, played by Dustin Hoffman, the Stanley Motz guy, he believes he deserves recognition for his brilliant work. But they say, no, you can't go public. You can't talk about this. He's like, this is my greatest work ever, constructing this war and everything and making the public believe this is real. They say, of course you can't go public with this. He's like, I need recognition. Conrad Breen warns him, shut up, man. But Motz won't let it go. And then he mysteriously dies of a heart attack. Kind of like Robert Maxwell mysteriously had a heart attack and fell over the edge of a boat, even though that would have required him to actually pull himself up to get up over. The official story is that Robert Maxwell had a heart attack and fell over the edge of the yacht. But to do that, he would have had to have a heart attack and then climb up over the edge to make himself fall out. He wouldn't have just accidentally fallen out. So it's bullcrap. And officially, Robert Maxwell's death is never really, people just moved on. They have a great big state funeral for him in Israel. I actually stood not far away from, if I couldn't identify which grave was his, but I knew I was right there in that area, like within probably 50 yards of where he was interred. But anyways, in the movie, Stanley Mott's, his death is never questioned. The propaganda machine rolls on. The president has gotten through the scandal. The public has been distracted. The bad guys win again. Now, Jeff Epstein has already been killed to cover up for powerful men. Is Ghislaine Maxwell going to be the next Stanley Motts? Is she going to be the one? Is she going to be the one to follow in the wake of her father? I'd say footsteps, but you don't walk on water, I guess, unless you're Jesus. Wag the Dog isn't simply a jab at Clinton. It's a prophecy. It's a blueprint for how governments and media and entertainment can form a triangular power structure that manufactures narratives that override truth and accountability and even reality. By the time the credits roll at the end of the movie, they've made one thing clear. If these people can fake a war, what else can they fake? If we, the public, accept this stuff, if we sing their patriotic songs and buy their merchandise, buy their red hats and everything, buy their gold shoes and their gold Bibles, follow this story, are we complicit? Are we complicit? It's my position that if MAGA allows Trump to distract them from the Epstein scandal with all this, political theatrics in D.C. and everything going on, I believe they are complicit in the cover-up of the Epstein child sex trafficking network. So MAGA, when you see Donald Trump trying to wag the dog, you better double down, speak out louder for transparency, and demand a full release of those Epstein files. That is my message today, and that's all I got to say on that, ladies and gentlemen. So let me take a look over here at the chat. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Once again, if you have just come in the last little while, hit the thumbs up. Marjorie Foster says, Jake, you explained that beautifully, and it connects the dots for me. I'm glad, Marjorie, that you enjoyed it. It's crazy. Why doesn't the media talk about this stuff? For one thing, they're not going to because of who finances them. But the other thing is, it takes a long time. A regular news show is not going to go and do all this. Plus, there's lawsuit threats. There's all kinds of trouble that you can get in. But also, they don't have the will to do it, and it takes a certain perspective from outside of the Democrat and Republican paradigms to see this, because you can't see the truth if you're not looking at both sides of the issue. And when you're inside, deeply entrenched in one political party, you're going to miss out stuff. Like here, I've been talking about Bill Clinton, right? And his problems. If I was a Democrat, I probably wouldn't be doing that. But I'm also talking about Donald Trump and his problems. If I was a diehard Trumper, I would not be doing that. And you would therefore not be able to connect these dots and see all of it, how it fits together. And that's why I think that having intellectual independence is so important. I think that it's fine to lean one way or another. I lean Republican still on a lot of things. But not so much that I'm going to give my loyalty or cede over to that political party my intellectual capacity. I'm going to think for myself. I will make up my own doggone mind. I'll look at the facts and see what I think. And that allows us to have a balanced view of issues that you're not going to get out there. Same with the media outlets. CNN, MSNBC, who do they align with? Do they align with the Republican Party or with the Democrat Party? Clearly, they align with the Democrats. Fox News, ONN, some of these. Who do they align with? Very much with the Republicans. So it's the same with these media corporations. they are not going to see or be able to report on a balanced view of things, or a composite of all of the facts and evidence into one narrative, because they are partisan. In the case of the media companies, they're like that by design. It's, you make your money by preaching to certain demographics. Cicero, good night. Thank you so much for the support, the donations, and I look forward to your email. Thank you very much. I am heartened by all of the people that have been turning against Israel. I'm glad it's picking up. I'm glad that there are people out there speaking out. I hope that it continues. And one of the keys to keeping that going on is to keep talking about the Epstein scandal, because it's something that links over to Israel. It links into the power structure, the corrupt system here in the United States. And it's something that can unite Democrats and Republicans on a common cause, because it's not a partisan thing. You either are against abuse of children or you're not. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. Everybody should feel the same. Anyway, Joseph says, I got to bring back the End Times news report intro. You like that, did you? I haven't watched those things in years. I wonder if I got any of them around here. Probably not. Let me look. No, not audio. No, let me look for the video. I don't see it. I know I've got it around somewhere in my files. Is this it? I've got different ones. Here is one of my oldest intros that I don't even know if you would know this one. I know. To me, it made perfect sense at the time. Let me see what else I got. Yeah, the hissing cat with the lightning. Yeah, that was a really old one. Let's see. I got different ones here. Here's one. What nation we live. This effort to build a political entity in Israel is simply against the words of God. It is rebellion against him to return to the lands of Palestine, even if the lands have been completely uninhabited. And he goes on to say, we pray for the speedy and peaceful dismantlement of this evil, sinister state that has brought about so much death and suffering. Whew. Dude, that guy's anti-Semitic, isn't he? That Jewish priest is such an anti-Semite. Oh my goodness. That's just some artwork that a viewer had sent in there at the end. What else do I have here?
If you don't like what my pal Jake Morphonios says, it's obvious you can't handle the truth. Go back to CNN, you mush-brained morons.
All right, so that's Blackstone. That's not the old end times stuff, but let me see if I got anything else here. All of these lawyer for truth stuff was always so goofy, so funny. Let's see.
So you better be listening to the Blackstone Intelligence Network, or you'll be singing the wrong tune.
He sent me a bunch of those. He bought hats he's a lawyer, and he bought Blackstone caps for everyone in his office. So all of his staff would wear Blackstone caps. ZMCG, I had a black cat when I was younger, but not at that time. Actually, I had a black and gray cat, tabby cat, at the time that I made that thing. But I need the one that had that musical thing. That bum bum bum. I use that a lot. Where is that? I've tucked away so many of these things I don't even know where they are anymore. I don't know. I don't know where that one is. I think I must have moved those to some other place when I rebranded as Blackstone. Anyway. Television, the drug of a nation, says Joel. Joseph says it was like a stock rock riff I have heard on other channels. The thing I used the most was I manipulated it to change it so I wouldn't get like copyright strike. But I had this, I used to love music soundtracks from movies. And one of them that I liked was a soundtrack from the Incredible Hulk movie. Not the first one with Ang Lee, directed by Ang Lee, but the second one. And it had music in it that I liked. And there was this recurring theme that they used throughout the movie. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum. And so I took that and just edited it in a program to change the key it was in and change the duration so that it was manipulated enough that it wouldn't get picked up. And I used that a lot. Bum, bum, bum. Thank you, Marjorie. Enjoyable, educational, and entertaining. Your memory for detail is amazing. Some things. I remember some things, and then other things I just can't. I don't know. I don't know why some useless data sticks up there in my head, and then I can't remember how old I am. I know today. Today I know I'm 51. And I'm actually feel proud of myself that I know my age, because usually when someone asks me, I don't know. I know I'm at least 50, but it's usually I know it within a year or two. But I've been like this for a decade. I haven't known how old I am for forever. It just, for some reason, that kind of information doesn't stick in my head. I'm sure there's some explanation for it. Jake the plumber for president. Well, guys, I don't know. We have hit the what? How long have we been on now? 3 hours 20 minutes. So I did the 2 hours. I thought I'd hit 2 hours. I went over a little bit, but I think I'll probably wrap things up here. Let me just finish, I guess, with encouraging people to let's see, BlackstoneIntel.com. What is it? What is my Substack? BlackstoneIntel.substack. Okay. BlackstoneIntel.substack.com. If you have not already signed up, that's something you can do. Of course, I would love it if you would sign up for just $5 a month, and you can cancel even after 1 month, but $5 a month and you get access to my reports. Like what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to take a lot of the information that was in tonight's show and I'm going to type it up into report form with a lot of these names and events and stuff like that. And I'll publish it to Substack as a report so it's in written form. I don't know tomorrow if I'll have enough time to add in all the sources, but I also, what I like to do with most of my Blackstone reports is include a lot of sources that I get my information from. So you'll be reading and then there'll be an end note here at the end of this sentence, and then you can go down to the footnotes and find the source. And when possible, I put a clickable link in there where you can go and look at the data yourself. Like in this last report that I published on the operation, the Midnight Climax, the thing where the CIA was having prostitutes go pick up Johns in San Francisco, dose them with LSD back at the apartment, and then the CIA would sit there on the other side of a two-way mirror and watch and try and have the prostitutes make suggestions and get information. And it's trying to learn what you can do to people without LSD, with the Johns not knowing that they had been slipped LSD in their liquor. But anyway, I put sources in there, and so you can click on it, and it takes you to the CIA's website where you can look at documents there that support the stuff. So anyway, even if you don't become a paid subscriber on Substack, I would still love it for everybody who's willing to do it to go in and add their, just sign up, put your email address in there. And that way, should I ever get booted off of YouTube again, for like my 5th time, I can reach out to you and say, hey, I've started either a new channel, or I'm over here on this Rumble channel, or I'm doing this other thing. That would be great. Great way to let you know. But I can't let you know if I don't have a way to contact you. So that's why I want to keep that email list strong. And you wouldn't be alone, because I've got over 9,000, 9,300 people on it that get my updates. Anyway. And last thing is, the last way that you could support, you see all the links in the bottom, paypal.me/BlackstoneIntel, patreon.com/BlackstoneIntel. A lot of this stuff that I publish to Substack, I will put over at the $5 and up level on Patreon as well. Patreon, there are advantages to that. Substack, there's advantages to that. And then the most recent thing where Cicero, who was won one of the games tonight, one of the drawings, Cicero is one of my new channel members. I started that a week or so ago, where you can sign up to be a channel member and get access to stuff there as well. I've been posting things at the $5 and up level. Same thing. I try and keep it uniform between Substack, Patreon, and the new stuff on YouTube. At the $5 and up point, I try and give the same content to each one so that people don't feel like, oh, I got to go pay $5 over here to get this, and I got to go over here and pay $5 to get that. I try and try and give the same stuff to each one. I do charge $1 more at that $5 level. It's $5.99 instead of $5 on YouTube because they keep 30%. YouTube keeps a lot of the earnings compared to the others. So I charge a little bit more so that I'm getting the same thing. But anyway. Good night to you all. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I enjoyed it. And reach out to me. If you made a donation, contact me, jake@blackstoneintel.com, if you want a thank you letter sent to you. And I love to read your comments. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. And we'll live stream again here in a couple of days. So take care. Hit that thumbs up on your way out. Love you guys. Take it easy.